Stone does not lie, but it can keep secrets. Across deserts, mountains, and forgotten plains, massive structures rise with a precision that seems to defy the limits of their age. They are older than our textbooks suggest, heavier than our machines should allow, and aligned with a knowledge we still struggle to explain. How were they built? Without steel, engines, or modern math? And more unsettling, why were they built at all? As archaeology uncovers details that don't fit the narrative, a deeper mystery emerges. Step closer, and let's explore what these ancient structures may still be trying to tell us. Perched on the sun-scorched hills of the Argolid, where the wind whispers across limestone ridges and the earth seems to hold centuries of silence, lie the lesser-known Tholos tombs of the Mycenaean civilization. Unlike the monumental treasury of Atreus, whose grandeur commands attention, these smaller tombs are more modest in scale, yet no less enigmatic. Their circular chambers, carefully hewn from local stone, are crowned with corbelled roofs that defy gravity and quiet elegance. Moss and lichen cling to the weathered stones, softening their precise geometry, yet the craftsmanship hints at a knowledge far beyond simple construction. Walk among them, and one feels an almost imperceptible tension in the air, a sense that these were not merely places of burial, but thresholds to something more profound. Archaeologists date these structures to the late Helladic period, roughly between 1500 and 1200 BCE, placing them firmly within the heart of Mycenaean civilization. Yet, despite centuries of study, much about these tombs remains puzzling. Their sizes, orientations, and distribution across the landscape suggest patterns, hints of ritual or social hierarchy that are only partially understood. Why were some families or clans allotted grandiose monuments, while others were interred in these smaller, more intimate spaces? The construction techniques themselves provoke questions. Large, irregular stones are stacked with precision, and the corbelled vaulting, where layers of stone gradually overlap to form a dome, is remarkably stable, standing for over 3 millennia without mortar. How did a culture without metal cranes or modern engineering achieve such lasting symmetry? Some researchers suggest it was a matter of skill, inherited and refined over generations. Others note that certain alignments, particularly with the rising and setting sun at solstices, hint at astronomical knowledge embedded in their very design. Were these tombs simply repositories for the dead, or did their builders intend them to mark cycles of time, life, and death in ways we cannot fully decipher? Inside, the chambers are hushed, echoing faintly with the imagination of those long gone. Fragments of pottery, remnants of offerings, and traces of skeletal remains tell a story of ritual and remembrance. Yet the precise ceremonies performed within these stone walls remain lost to time. Some scholars argue that these lesser tholoi were primarily familial graves, serving the immediate clan rather than the wider polity. Others note anomalies, carvings, unusual orientations, or clusters of tombs in locations that defy purely practical explanations. Could these subtleties hint at lost symbolic systems, secret knowledge, or spiritual beliefs that we can only glimpse through the cracks in history? Speculation occasionally drifts further into the fringes of scholarly debate. Some observers point to the uncanny similarity between the corbelled techniques here and those found in distant regions, raising questions of cultural transmission or shared architectural wisdom. Others note that certain tombs align with subterranean features, natural caves, or hidden springs, suggesting the possibility that the Mycenaeans were attuned to geological and energetic forces now largely forgotten. While these ideas remain unproven, they underscore a central truth. Even in well-studied civilizations, there remain aspects of knowledge, belief, and intent that elude our grasp. And so the lesser Tholos tombs stand, quietly weathering the centuries. They are at once mundane and extraordinary, testaments to human care, to skill, to ritual, and to mystery. Each stone, each curve of the corbelled dome is a question written in rock, awaiting an answer that may never come. What did the Mycenaeans truly intend when they built these tombs? What messages, if any, were encoded in their silent chambers? And as we continue to uncover and study them, how much of their story will remain just out of reach, lingering in the shadows of history, inviting us to wonder what secrets are still hidden beneath the Greek soil? From the quiet hills of southern Greece, where Mycenaean tombs hold their ancient secrets, our journey takes us northward to the rugged landscapes of what is now North Macedonia. Here, atop a rocky plateau overlooking the Stip Valley, the Kokino megalithic observatory rises from the earth, a formation of stone that seems to emerge almost organically from the terrain. Its massive boulders and natural outcroppings are arranged in patterns that hint at deliberate placement, yet the lines between what is natural and what is shaped by human hands are blurred. The plateau itself feels timeless, as if the stones and the wind have conspired for millennia to keep their story just beyond our reach. Kokino is estimated to date back to the Bronze Age, around the 19th century BCE, making it one of the oldest known megalithic observatories in the world. Archaeologists have mapped out what appear to be observation points, sight lines, and even markers aligned with celestial events, the rising and setting of the sun during solstices and equinoxes, the shifting position of the moon, and possibly even lunar cycles that span decades. The precision of these alignments is striking. How did a society so far removed from modern instruments manage to integrate astronomy so intimately into stone? Were they simply practical farmers marking seasonal changes, or did their observations carry a deeper, perhaps spiritual significance? Walking across Kokino, one is struck by the way the stones interact with light and shadow. Certain boulders cast precise shadows on flat surfaces, their angles shifting as the sun climbs and falls, marking time with a quiet authority. Other formations form natural corridors, where a viewer's gaze is funneled along lines that align almost unnervingly with the horizons of distant mountains. The patterns are so deliberate, so rhythmically precise, that some researchers suggest Kokino was more than a utilitarian tool for agriculture. Could it have been a calendar, a ceremonial center, a place where the movements of the heavens were translated into ritual or governance? Yet the mysteries deepen when one examines the human footprint at Kokino. Unlike other megalithic sites, there is a scarcity of permanent settlement evidence nearby. Few signs of extensive habitation or large communal structures exist. Why would a society invest so much effort into shaping and arranging these stones in such a remote and exposed location? Some scholars posit that Kokino was a pilgrimage site, a place where knowledge, power, or perhaps cosmic connection was concentrated. Others note that certain stones appear to have been intentionally placed to produce auditory effects. When the wind passes through narrow gaps, the stones hum or resonate. Was this an intentional design, or a fortunate quirk of nature observed and utilized by its builders? Intriguingly, Kokino shares features with megalithic sites far beyond its borders. The use of natural rock formations enhanced by minimal shaping, the integration of sightlines with celestial phenomena, and the apparent layering of practical and ceremonial functions echo similar structures found in Western Europe, Anatolia, and even parts of the Near East. Was this a coincidence, a universal response to the night sky, or evidence of cultural knowledge traveling across vast distances during the Bronze Age? The absence of definitive artifacts linking Kokino to these distant regions only amplifies the question. The more one studies Kokino, the more its subtleties reveal themselves. On certain days of the year, the sun aligns with specific notches in the rock, illuminating depressions and markings that are otherwise hidden in shadow. These events suggest a calendar of remarkable sophistication, capable of tracking not only days and months, but perhaps longer astronomical cycles. Yet, the exact purpose remains elusive. Were these observations used solely for agricultural planning, or did they serve as a foundation for a proto-scientific understanding of the cosmos, intertwined with ritualistic and spiritual meaning? As night falls over the plateau, the stones seem to settle into silence, yet the mysteries linger. The Kokino Observatory stands as a testament to human curiosity, ingenuity, and the enduring fascination with the heavens. It raises questions not only about what the people of the Bronze Age understood, but also about how much knowledge has been lost to time. Did the builders leave us a coded message in stone, waiting to be interpreted? Or are we witnessing a convergence of natural landscape and human perception, a moment of insight into the mind of an ancient observer? And so, as we leave the stony heights of Kokino and gaze across the valleys below, the questions remain open. What knowledge lies hidden in the angles of these boulders, the shadows they cast, and the skies they once measured? How much of Kokino's purpose will remain unknowable, whispering its secrets only to those who stand and watch the sun and moon dance across the same rocks that have endured for nearly 4,000 years? The story of human observation, of our desire to measure, understand, and connect with the cosmos, continues here, at the edge of what we can explain, inviting us to wonder what might still be waiting to be discovered. Leaving behind the wind-swept plateaus of Kokino, where stones align with the movements of sun and moon, our journey now takes us thousands of kilometers across the globe to the tropical islands of Tonga, in the heart of the South Pacific. Here, atop the rolling plains of Tongatapu, stands a monument that is at once simple in its design and profoundly enigmatic. The Ha'amanga, a Maui, a massive trilithon carved from coral limestone, its 3 monolithic stones standing in silent testimony to a civilization long past. Against the vibrant greens of the surrounding landscape, the structure rises with quiet authority, the horizontal lintel perfectly balanced upon 2 towering vertical supports, casting elongated shadows that shift with the sun. The Ha'amanga. A Maui is estimated to have been erected in the 13th century, during the reign of Tui Tonga Tu'itatui, a period that marked the height of Tonga's influence across the Pacific. Yet, despite its clear historical context, the purpose of this imposing structure remains shrouded in mystery. Local oral traditions speak of it as a gateway, a symbol of unity and protection, a stone doorway linking earth and sky, or even a marker of royal authority. Scholars have long debated whether it served primarily ceremonial, political, or astronomical functions, and the truth may well encompass all 3. The stones themselves are remarkable. The vertical supports rise nearly 6 meters into the air, each weighing an estimated 30 tons, while the horizontal lintel stretches across them with an almost impossibly precise fit. How were these immense stones quarried, transported, and assembled without modern machinery? Some researchers point to ingenious techniques involving rollers, levers, and sheer manpower, yet even these explanations struggle to account for the precision and scale. What drove the builders to invest such extraordinary effort in this single monument? And why here, on this open expanse of plains, with no natural stone quarries immediately nearby? One of the most intriguing aspects of Ha'amanga, a Maui, is its potential astronomical alignment. Observers have noted that the Trilithon is oriented in such a way that during the solstices, the sun rises and sets in alignment with the stones, suggesting an awareness of solar cycles. Could this have been a calendar, marking agricultural seasons or ritual ceremonies tied to the heavens? Or might it have held deeper symbolic meaning, linking the earthly power of the Tongan kings with celestial order? The alignment is precise enough to suggest intentionality, yet there is no direct written record from the builders to confirm this theory. Beyond its astronomical possibilities, the Trilithon carries an aura of mystery in the way it interacts with its surroundings. From certain vantage points, the structure frames distant hills, seemingly marking sightlines across the landscape. At dawn and dusk, shadows stretch across the plain, and light dances along the horizontal stone with almost deliberate choreography. Some have speculated that these effects were designed to impress, to communicate power, or to signify a spiritual connection to the cosmos. Others note that oral traditions describe the Ha'amanga as a stone throne or a gateway of chiefs, hinting that its significance may have been as much cultural and social as it was practical or astronomical. Intriguingly, the Ha'amanga shares features with other megalithic monuments around the world: trilithons, dolmens, and lintel-supported structures from Europe to Asia. Yet its isolated location in the Pacific raises questions about independent innovation versus shared architectural inspiration. Was this a singular achievement of the Tongan people, a local manifestation of universal human ingenuity? Or do the similarities point to deeper connections, lost to time, between distant cultures who grappled with stone, sky, and symbolism in parallel ways? The absence of conclusive evidence leaves the question open, allowing the structure itself to speak in silence. There is also a subtler mystery embedded in the human experience of the site. Stand beneath the lintel, and one becomes acutely aware of scale and proportion, of the immense effort required to raise these stones, and of the intent that drove those ancient hands. The monument invites contemplation. What did the builders see when they looked through this stone frame? Did they envision the alignment of the sun as a way to mark ritual time, or as a connection to ancestors and spirits beyond the visible world? Could Ha'amanga, a Maui, have served as a center for knowledge and observation, a place where rulers, priests, or scholars gathered to interpret the movements of the heavens and the rhythms of their society? Even the surrounding landscape adds layers to the puzzle. Small earthworks and nearby burial mounds hint at a broader ceremonial complex, yet much remains unexcavated. Some scholars suggest that additional structures, now lost or eroded, may have formed an integrated system of observation, ritual, and governance. Others propose that Ha'amanga a Maui was intentionally left isolated, a singular marker of authority and cosmic order, meant to dominate the imagination of those who approached it. The ambiguity, far from diminishing its significance, intensifies the sense of wonder. As the sun sets over Tongatapu, the stones cast long, quiet shadows across the plain, and the Ha'amanga a Maui stands resolute, bridging centuries of history with unanswered questions. What knowledge guided its builders, and how much of that understanding has been lost? Did the Trilithon serve as a cosmic calendar, a political symbol, or something even more profound, now beyond our comprehension? And as we continue to observe, study, and interpret, how much will remain hidden in the subtle angles, the shifting shadows, and the stories whispered by generations of Tongans? Here, as with the stones of Kokino or the tombs of Mycenaean, we are reminded that even when we uncover the physical traces of human ingenuity, the true depth of meaning can remain elusive. Ha'amanga a Maui stands not only as a monument of stone, but as a monument to human curiosity itself, inviting us to wonder, to question, and to imagine what secrets the past may still hold. From the quiet plains of Tonga, where the Ha'amanga a Maui rises as a testament to human ingenuity and cosmic curiosity, we now travel across oceans and continents to the Valley of Mexico, to a place where smoke still whispers from the remnants of an ancient volcanic eruption, and the earth itself bears the scars of time. Here lies Cuicuilco, a site whose name evokes mystery in both Nahuatl and history, but whose most striking feature is the circular pyramid that dominates its landscape. Unlike the step pyramids of Teotihuacan, or the towering temples of the Maya, this pyramid is a rounded, cone-shaped structure, its broad base grounded firmly in volcanic soil, its apex truncated, giving it the appearance of a monumental crown, long since softened by centuries of erosion. Cuicuilco is estimated to date back to as early as 800 BCE, making it one of the earliest major ceremonial centers in Mesoamerica. Yet, much about the site remains puzzling. The pyramid itself is constructed from layers of volcanic rock and clay, materials sourced locally, yet arranged with a sophistication that suggests knowledge of geometry and spatial planning. Archaeologists have identified concentric terraces and what appear to be ritual spaces within the pyramid, but unlike the later pyramids of the region, there are no inscriptions or glyphs to guide interpretation. What ceremonies were performed here, and why was the pyramid designed in this circular form, a shape that seems to break with the linearity of later Mesoamerican architecture? The location of Cuicuilco is no less remarkable than its design. Situated on the southwestern edge of the Valley of Mexico, the pyramid once overlooked fertile plains and volcanic slopes. Today, it is dwarfed by the sprawling cityscape of Mexico City. Yet even beneath the urban sprawl, the land retains traces of its volcanic origins. The eruption of Xitle, around 245 CE, buried much of Cuicuilco under lava, effectively halting the city's growth and scattering its population. Was this catastrophic event seen by its inhabitants as divine judgment, a warning from the gods, or simply a natural disaster? And how did this eruption shape the trajectory of Mesoamerican civilizations that followed, such as Teotihuacan, which would rise not far from the buried remains of Cuicuilco? Some of the most intriguing questions about the circular pyramid concern its alignment and function. Scholars have noted that the structure may have been oriented to astronomical events, potentially marking the solstices or guiding ritual cycles linked to the agricultural calendar. Yet, without definitive records, the extent of its astronomical significance remains speculative. Could the circular design itself hold symbolic meaning, perhaps representing the cyclical nature of time, life, and death? Or was it simply a practical adaptation to the volcanic terrain on which it was built? The lack of comparable circular pyramids in the region only deepens the mystery, raising the possibility that Cuicuilco represents an isolated cultural experiment, a monument whose meaning was understood only by those who lived in its shadow. Excavations at Cuicuilco have revealed more than just stone layers. Pottery, figurines, and traces of ceremonial offerings suggest a society deeply engaged with ritual and communal practice. Yet much remains undeciphered. Certain arrangements of stones, depressions in the terraces, and the strategic placement of ceremonial areas hint at knowledge and intention that modern researchers can only partially reconstruct. How did the builders negotiate the demands of space, energy, and symbolism in crafting a structure that is both monumental and intimate? And what messages were encoded in the very geometry of the pyramid, visible to those who knew how to read its silent language? Interestingly, Cuicuilco appears to predate the rise of Teotihuacan, yet there are subtle echoes between the two. Some scholars suggest that Cuicuilco may have influenced later Mesoamerican urban planning, including the orientation of streets, plazas, and pyramids. Others propose that its abrupt destruction created a vacuum of power, shaping the cultural and political evolution of the valley. Beyond practical or historical considerations, however, there is a subtler layer of intrigue: the way the pyramid interacts with its natural surroundings. Shadows stretch across its terraces at dawn and dusk, and the slopes of the volcanoes beyond seem to frame the site in a natural theater. Could the builders have intentionally chosen this location to harness these visual effects, blending architecture and landscape in ways that amplified ritual or symbolic meaning? Standing at the edge of the Cuicuilco pyramid today, it is difficult not to feel the passage of time as a tangible presence. The lava flows that engulfed the city, the volcanic peaks that encircle it, and the carefully placed stones of the pyramid itself speak of human effort, adaptation, and aspiration. And yet, for all that has been uncovered, the purpose and full significance of the site remain elusive. Why this circular form? How was it used in daily and ceremonial life? And what knowledge, ritual, or wisdom has been lost beneath the volcanic rock, waiting silently to be rediscovered? As we contemplate Cuicuilco, the mysteries of the ancient world stretch across continents and cultures, connecting places as distant as Tonga, North Macedonia, and Greece. Each structure, a trilithon, an observatory, a tomb, a pyramid, reveals the ingenuity, vision, and curiosity of civilizations that sought to understand the cosmos, mark time, and express meaning in enduring stone. Cuicuilco stands as a testament not only to human creativity, but also to the questions that persist across millennia. What do these structures truly reveal about their builders, and what secrets might still lie hidden, waiting for us to observe, interpret, and imagine anew? From the sunlit plains of Cuicuilco, where a circular pyramid rises from volcanic soil and whispers of ancient ceremonies, we now turn our gaze to the misty hills of northern England, to a landscape that has been quietly holding its secrets for millennia. Amid the rolling fields of Cumbria, just south of Penrith, stands Long Meg and Her Daughters, one of the largest and most enigmatic stone circles in Britain. The arrangement of monoliths sprawls across the meadow in a rough ellipse, the largest stone, Long Meg herself, leaning slightly, carved with intricate spirals and cup marks, a solitary sentinel watching over her smaller companions. Long Meg and Her Daughters is estimated to date back to the late Neolithic period, around 3000 to 2900 BCE, a time when communities across Britain were experimenting with monumental stone constructions. Yet, despite centuries of study, the purpose of this site remains unclear. Stone circles are generally associated with ceremonial or ritual activities, but the specific intentions of the builders at Long Meg are elusive. Was it a place of worship, a communal gathering site, or a calendar aligned with the sun, moon, and stars? Or did it serve multiple functions, combining the practical, the symbolic, and the spiritual, in ways that modern archaeology can only partially reconstruct? The landscape itself adds layers to the mystery. Situated on gently rising ground, the circle commands sweeping views of the surrounding valleys and hills, yet it is deliberately removed from other contemporary settlements. The choice of location suggests intentionality, an awareness of the natural environment that goes beyond convenience. Certain stones appear to frame distant features on the horizon, hills or rivers that might have held significance for the builders. Could these alignments have been intended to mark seasonal events, track celestial cycles, or connect the living to the spiritual realm? Or was the very act of assembling and arranging these stones a form of social and cultural expression, a statement of collective identity, power, or belief? Long Meg herself is particularly intriguing. Standing over 4.7 meters tall, she is the largest stone in the circle, and her surface is etched with spirals, concentric rings, and cup marks, symbols that recur in Neolithic Britain, but whose meanings remain debated. Are these carvings purely decorative, or do they encode a system of knowledge, ritual, or memory now lost to time? The smaller stones, her daughters, surround her in a roughly elliptical pattern, numbering around 59, though some have fallen or been displaced over the centuries. The spatial relationship between Long Meg and the surrounding stones appears deliberate, as if each monolith were positioned to hold a precise role in the circle's function, whether symbolic, astronomical, or ceremonial. Archaeological excavations have revealed little in terms of burials or permanent structures, distinguishing Long Meg from other megalithic sites that served as tombs or habitations. This absence deepens the enigma. The circle was clearly constructed with immense effort and intention, yet the traces of daily life around it are scarce. Some scholars argue that it functioned as a sacred landscape, where the act of gathering, observing, or performing ritual was itself the purpose, rather than any physical remains left behind. Others have suggested that the carvings on Long Meg could indicate cosmological knowledge, linking the circle to the cycles of the sun and moon, or even to the movements of stars and planets visible to Neolithic eyes. Intriguingly, Long Meg shares characteristics with stone circles elsewhere in Britain and Ireland, yet it also possesses unique features. Its sheer size, the detailed carvings on the central monolith, and the elliptical layout set it apart from the more circular and uniform monuments found in places like Avebury or Stanton Drew. Could this reflect regional variations in ritual practice, a different societal hierarchy, or even an experimental approach to monument building that has few surviving parallels? The combination of artistry, scale, and location hints at a sophisticated understanding of space, geometry, and possibly astronomy, yet the intent remains open to interpretation. Legends surrounding Long Meg add another layer to the mystery. Folklore claims that the stones were once women turned to stone by a witch named Long Meg, punished for dancing on the Sabbath, a story that, while mythological, speaks to the human tendency to imbue ancient monuments with narrative to explain what the eyes can see but the mind cannot fully comprehend. These stories, passed down over centuries, remind us that human engagement with the site has always been layered, ceremonial, practical, spiritual, and imaginative, each reinforcing the monument's enduring presence in the landscape. Standing within the circle today, one senses the deliberate quiet of the site, broken only by wind across the meadow or the distant call of birds. The stones command attention without demanding it, inviting contemplation of the people who shaped them, the knowledge they possessed, and the intentions that guided them. And yet, for all that is known, the dating, the carvings, the alignments, so much remains unexplained. Why was this circle erected in this specific form? What knowledge, ritual, or cultural significance did Long Meg hold for her builders? And how much of that understanding has been lost to time, hidden in plain sight among the stones, waiting for us to see, interpret, and imagine anew? Long Meg and her daughters, like Cuicuilco, Ha'amanga, Maui, Kokino, and the Mycenaean tombs before it, stands as a testament to the curiosity, ingenuity, and creativity of our ancestors. Yet it also reminds us that even when we uncover the physical remnants of human endeavor, the full meaning can remain elusive, whispering questions across millennia. What do these structures truly tell us about those who built them, and what secrets are still hidden, waiting patiently to be discovered? From the misty fields of Cumbria, where Long Meg and her daughters stand as silent witnesses to Neolithic ceremony and cosmic observation, we now journey across the European continent to the windswept coast of Brittany in northwestern France. Here, on a gentle rise overlooking the rugged landscape of the Morbihan Peninsula, lies the Cairn of Barnenez, one of the oldest and most enigmatic megalithic monuments in Europe. Its massive stone-built superstructure dominates the terrain, a sprawling labyrinth of passageways, chambers, and carefully stacked stones, stretching more than 70 meters in length, rising several meters above the surrounding fields, and evoking both awe and profound curiosity. The Cairn of Barnenez is estimated to date back to around 4,850 BCE, placing it among the earliest monumental stone constructions in the world, centuries before the pyramids of Egypt. Yet, despite its antiquity, the purpose and design of this massive cairn remain puzzling. The structure consists of a series of passage tombs arranged beneath a carefully constructed mound of local stone, each chamber enclosed by massive slabs, some weighing several tons. Archaeologists believe the cairn served as a communal burial site, but its sheer scale, precision, and the effort required to quarry, transport, and assemble the stones suggest motivations that transcend the practical. Why dedicate such monumental labor to a single site? What beliefs, rituals, or societal structures compelled a Neolithic community to undertake such a task? The cairn's location itself is compelling. Situated on a ridge with commanding views of the surrounding plains and, in the distance, the Atlantic coastline, it is both prominent and isolated. The placement implies deliberate consideration, a relationship between the monument and the natural landscape that may have had ritual, symbolic, or practical significance. Could the cairn have been designed to mark territory, to honor ancestors, or to align with celestial events? Some researchers have noted possible alignments of certain chambers with sunrise during solstices, suggesting an awareness of solar cycles, yet the interpretations are tentative, leaving much to speculation. Step inside the passageways, and the atmosphere shifts. The chambers are narrow, lined with massive slabs, their surfaces etched with abstract carvings, cup marks, lines, and patterns whose meaning has been debated for decades. Are these carvings symbolic, serving a ritual function or conveying spiritual knowledge? Or were they simply decorative, meant to mark the identity of those interred within? The precision with which the stones were placed and the sheer endurance of the structure through millennia of weathering imply an advanced understanding of engineering and construction, remarkable for a society without metal tools or wheels. How did these ancient builders achieve such feats, and what knowledge has been lost to time, carried only in the silent stones of Barnenez? Beyond its engineering, the Cairn of Barnenez invites reflection on human intent and imagination. Unlike simple burial mounds, the cairn combines complexity with monumentality, layering multiple chambers beneath a single superstructure. This suggests an awareness of both practical and symbolic concerns, a space to house the dead, and, simultaneously, a statement of cultural identity and continuity. The cairn's size and prominence would have dominated the surrounding landscape, a constant visual reminder of those who built it and those it memorialized. Could it have served as a gathering place for ceremonies? A locus of ritual activity that drew communities together in ways that were as social as they were spiritual? Intriguingly, Barnenez shares characteristics with other megalithic sites in Brittany, such as the passage tombs at Gavrinis and Lochmariacher, yet it stands apart in its scale and complexity. Its construction predates these neighboring monuments by several centuries, suggesting that it may represent an early phase of monumental architecture in the region, a prototype, or perhaps an experimental form of communal expression that inspired subsequent generations. Some scholars even propose that its builders possessed a sophisticated understanding of geometry and spatial organization, as evidenced by the careful placement of chambers, corridors, and external facings. Could these early architects have had knowledge that we only partially glimpse today, a blueprint for ritual, cosmology, or societal hierarchy embedded in stone? Legends and local lore add yet another layer to Barnenez's aura. Over the centuries, the cairn has been surrounded by stories of ancient giants, magical ceremonies, and sacred rites, echoing the human tendency to imbue monuments with narrative meaning. These tales, while folkloric, point to the enduring presence of the site in human consciousness, a silent witness that inspires wonder and speculation alike. They remind us that monuments like Barnenez are more than stone and earth. They are vessels of memory, imagination, and cultural continuity, their significance evolving over millennia, even as their physical form endures. Standing before the Cairn of Barnenez today, one is struck by its scale, its precision, and the weight of history it carries. The structure evokes questions not only about its builders' technical abilities, but also about their understanding of life, death, and the cosmos. How did they perceive time, ritual, and community? What spiritual or social imperatives drove them to construct a monument that would endure for nearly 7,000 years? And, perhaps most compellingly, what secrets remain hidden within its chambers and beneath its stones, still awaiting discovery by those who study and reflect upon them? Like Long Meg and Her Daughters, Cuicuilco, Ha'amonga, a Maui, Kokino, and the Mycenaean tombs, the Cairn of Barnenez is a testament to human curiosity, ingenuity, and a desire to connect with forces beyond the immediate world. Yet it also reminds us of the limits of our understanding, the quiet persistence of mystery, and the questions that endure even when the physical evidence remains. What did the builders of Barnenez truly intend, and what knowledge has been lost beneath the stones? And as we continue to explore these ancient landscapes, how much of their meaning will remain hidden, speaking silently through the weight, arrangement, and endurance of stone? From the ancient passage tombs of Barnenez, whose massive stones have endured millennia along the windswept coast of Brittany, our journey moves inward across the rolling landscapes of Gaul, where the remains of another kind of ancient construction rise from the earth, the hill forts of the Gallic tribes. Perched atop high ridges and overlooking fertile valleys, these fortifications are at once imposing and enigmatic. Their earthen ramparts, wooden palisades, and stone embankments speak of defensive necessity, yet the scale, location, and persistence of these structures suggest purposes that extend beyond mere protection. Standing amidst the remnants today, one senses a dialogue between land, power, and the people who once shaped it, a conversation that remains largely undeciphered. Gallic Hillforts are known to have flourished from the late Bronze Age into the Iron Age, roughly between 800 BCE and 50 BCE, serving as centers of habitation, trade, and strategic control. Yet for all we know about their practical functions, much about their construction, distribution, and symbolic significance remains uncertain. Many of these forts occupy naturally defensible positions, steep hills, promontories, or cliffs, enhanced with man-made ditches and embankments. Others, however, are situated in locations that are less obviously strategic, raising questions about whether geography alone determined placement. Could these sites have also served ceremonial or social purposes, acting as markers of identity, territory, or spiritual power? The construction techniques of Gallic Hillforts reveal a careful mastery of landscape manipulation. Massive earthen ramparts, sometimes reinforced with timber or stone, were designed to deter attackers while demonstrating the collective effort and organization of the community. Some hill forts encompass multiple terraces and internal enclosures, suggesting hierarchical structures or the segregation of space for different social, political, or ritual functions. Yet the reasoning behind these designs remains speculative. Did the builders follow purely functional imperatives, or was there a symbolic logic embedded in the arrangement of walls, gates, and internal spaces, intended to communicate authority, cosmology, or cultural narrative to those who approached? The interiors of many hill forts reveal tantalizing fragments of life, charred remains from hearths, scattered pottery, tools, and occasionally burials, offering glimpses into daily existence. But unlike permanent settlements, the archaeological record often points to periodic occupation, suggesting that these were places to gather at specific times, perhaps for trade, ritual, or governance. Why were some hill forts heavily fortified yet sparsely populated, while others contained denser habitation? And why do so many of these structures remain aligned or situated in ways that seem to acknowledge the surrounding terrain, the sun's path, or other natural phenomena, hinting at an understanding of space that transcends mere survival? Across Gaul, hill forts vary in size, scale, and complexity. Some, like the massive oppida of the late Iron Age, could enclose tens of hectares, while smaller forts may have housed only a single community. This variation raises further questions. Were these differences a reflection of social hierarchy, the power of local chieftains, or the needs of collective defense? Or might they indicate ceremonial or symbolic roles that are now obscured by time, their full significance visible only to those who lived within their walls? The geographic distribution of hill forts, often forming networks along river valleys, trade routes, and strategic vantage points, also hints at a broader social and political landscape, one that combined practical defense, economic control, and perhaps ritual observance. Some researchers have suggested that certain hill forts align with celestial or topographical features, hinting at a layer of astronomical knowledge or sacred geography embedded in the landscape. Could the placement of gates, ramparts, or internal terraces correspond to the rising and setting sun, to solstices, or to the contours of the horizon? Were these forts simultaneously functional bastions and sacred spaces, places where the living, the dead, and the cosmos were conceptually intertwined? While such theories remain speculative, they invite a broader reflection on the ingenuity and intentionality of their builders. The enduring mystery of Gallic Hillforts is heightened by the oral traditions, legends, and historical accounts that survive. Roman writers describe fortified settlements with vivid imagery, portraying them as centers of resistance, power, and culture. Local folklore often imbues the sites with stories of giants, enchanted forests, or heroic battles, preserving a sense of awe and significance that echoes through centuries. Even today, the remains of these forts, ramparts carved into hillsides, terraces smoothed by human hands, and occasional stone foundations, convey a presence that is both tangible and intangible, a reminder of lives shaped by ambition, fear, and belief. Standing on the crest of a hill fort today, overlooking the valleys that stretch beyond, one can imagine the people who once gathered here, chieftains plotting, communities assembling, rituals performed under the sun or stars, and the watchful eyes of defenders scanning the horizon. The earthworks themselves, weathered yet resolute, provoke questions about intent, knowledge, and cultural memory. Why were some hill forts abandoned while others persisted for centuries? What knowledge guided their construction, and what has been lost in the erosion of time? And perhaps most profoundly, how much of the social, spiritual, and astronomical purpose encoded in these landscapes remains hidden, waiting silently to be rediscovered? Like the Cairn of Barnenez, Long Meg, Cuicuilco, Ha'amonga, Maui, Kokino, and the Mycenaean tombs. The Gallic Hillforts remind us that ancient structures are not merely stone and earth. They are repositories of human ambition, observation, and imagination, enduring monuments to curiosity, organization, and belief. And yet, for all that we have learned, the full story remains elusive. What truths lie buried in the terraces, ditches, and ramparts of these ancient fortifications? What secrets do the hills still guard, whispering across centuries to those willing to listen and wonder? From the rolling hills and earthen fortifications of Gaul, where Gallic Hillforts still whisper of strategy, ritual, and social cohesion, our journey now carries us eastward to the rugged landscapes of the Caucasus Mountains, to a region where stone meets sky in dramatic isolation. Here, high atop a remote plateau in western Georgia, stands the Shaori Fortress, a collection of megalithic walls and enigmatic structures that defy easy explanation. The site is perched hundreds of meters above the surrounding valleys, where sheer cliffs drop precipitously and the wind sweeps across the terrain with relentless force. From a distance, the fortress appears almost to emerge from the rocky ground itself, a natural extension of the mountains. Yet closer inspection reveals the deliberate placement of massive stone blocks, some weighing several tons, forming walls, enclosures, and terraces that cling to the steep slopes. Shaori Fortress is generally dated to the Bronze Age, roughly between 3000 and 1500 BCE, though precise chronologies remain difficult to establish due to the lack of extensive excavation and the challenging topography. The walls are dry stone constructions, assembled without mortar, yet they have endured millennia of harsh weather, earthquakes, and erosion. Some stones are enormous, carefully shaped and fitted together in ways that suggest not only technical skill, but also an understanding of stability, load distribution, and long-term durability. How did these ancient builders transport, lift, and precisely position such heavy stones on such unforgiving terrain? And what motivated them to undertake such extraordinary labor in a location so remote and inhospitable? The fortress itself is a labyrinth of terraces, enclosures, and pathways, many of which seem to follow the natural contours of the mountain rather than imposing an entirely artificial plan. Some researchers suggest this reflects practical adaptation to the terrain, while others argue it could hint at symbolic or ritual considerations, a way of harmonizing human construction with the natural world. Certain walls and passageways appear to align with prominent features of the landscape, distant peaks, river valleys, and vantage points from which the surrounding territory can be monitored. Was this placement purely strategic, or did it carry deeper meaning, ritual, cosmological, or territorial, that we are only beginning to perceive? Unlike many contemporary settlements or defensive sites, Shaori shows limited evidence of long-term habitation. Pottery fragments and a few stone tools have been discovered, but there is little indication of permanent dwellings. This raises questions about the fortress's primary function. Was it a temporary refuge for scattered communities during periods of conflict? A ceremonial site, perhaps linked to ancestor worship or solar and lunar observations? Or was it simultaneously practical, symbolic, and sacred, serving multiple purposes that were intimately intertwined with the social and spiritual life of the Bronze Age inhabitants? Some of the more puzzling features of Shaori are its megalithic arrangements. Certain blocks appear to have been deliberately placed to create corridors, terraces, or viewing platforms, some aligned with distant mountain peaks or natural light phenomena. Could these have served as early observatories, allowing inhabitants to track celestial events, seasons, or even longer cycles of time? Or might the orientation and design encode social or cosmological knowledge, accessible only to those initiated into specific traditions or rituals? The absence of written records leaves these questions tantalizingly unresolved, allowing the stone to speak in silence and mystery. The fortress is also remarkable for its isolation. To reach it requires steep, strenuous ascent, and its location offers commanding views while remaining difficult to approach from below. This duality, visibility and inaccessibility, suggests careful planning, but also invites speculation about intent. Was Shaori a stronghold of power, a refuge, or a symbol meant to impress and intimidate neighboring groups? Could the remoteness itself have been a deliberate choice, creating a sacred threshold between ordinary life and the extraordinary world of the fortress? Legends and oral traditions from the Caucasus region hint at stories of ancient peoples, monumental builders, and mysterious structures in the mountains, echoing the enigmatic aura of Shaori. While folklore cannot serve as historical evidence, it underscores the enduring impression these sites have left on human imagination, suggesting that even as centuries pass, their significance is remembered, if only in story. The resonance of the fortress across time reinforces the sense that these megalithic constructions were not merely utilitarian but infused with meaning that extended beyond the immediate physical world. Standing among the terraces of Shaori Fortress today, it is impossible not to sense the monumental effort required to create it. Each stone carries weight, not only physically but symbolically, as a testament to human ingenuity, determination, and perhaps a desire to reach beyond the everyday into realms of power, ritual, or cosmic understanding. And yet, for all its grandeur and resilience, Shaori remains profoundly mysterious. Why here, on this isolated plateau? What knowledge guided the builders? What rituals or practices took place within these walls, and what has been lost to time? Like the Gallic Hillforts, the Cairn of Barnenez, Long Meg, Cuicuilco, Ha'amanga, Maui, Kokino, and the Mycenaean tombs, Shaori Fortress reminds us that human civilizations have long sought to shape their world, mark their presence, and connect with forces beyond the immediate. Each stone, each wall, each carefully positioned terrace is a question left for us to ponder. What secrets does Shaori still guard, hidden among its blocks and terraces, whispering across the mountains of Georgia to those willing to observe, reflect, and wonder? From the rugged highlands of Georgia, where Shaori Fortress clings to a remote plateau and whispers of Bronze Age ingenuity, we journey westward to the windswept plains of Ireland, to the Burren region in County Clare, a limestone landscape carved by glaciers, rain, and time itself. Amidst this stark and otherworldly terrain, Poulnabrone Dolmen rises with quiet authority, a portal of stone set against rolling karst hills and the open sky. The dolmen's massive capstone, weighing several tons, rests atop slender vertical supports, creating a chamber beneath that has withstood the elements for nearly 6,000 years. Its simplicity belies a profound mystery, a silent monument to human intention, memory, and ritual. Poulnabrone, meaning hole of the quern in Irish, dates back to the Neolithic period, roughly 4,200 to 2,900 BCE, making it one of the earliest megalithic tombs in Ireland. Archaeologists have identified it as a portal tomb, designed to house the remains of the dead, yet its enduring allure lies not merely in its function, but in the precision, scale, and placement of the stones. How did communities, lacking wheels or metal tools, transport and erect the massive capstone with such apparent ease? And why select this particular location, on a limestone pavement strewn with fissures and cracks, exposed to wind and rain, yet commanding sweeping views of the Burren's undulating landscape? The dolmen is striking in both form and setting. The capstone appears to float above the vertical supports, creating a chamber that is both sheltering and elevated, a threshold between earth and sky. Archaeological excavations have revealed human remains, pottery fragments, and stone tools, indicating that the site was used for burial and ritual. Yet the arrangement of the dolmen itself, the deliberate spacing of its supports, and the careful balancing of the capstone suggest a deeper awareness of geometry, stability, and perhaps even symbolic intention. Could the very act of raising the stone have held ritual significance, a gesture connecting the living with the dead, or mortals with the cosmos? Poulnabrone's placement in the Burren adds another layer of intrigue. The dolmen occupies a raised position on the karst landscape, where the fractures and fissures of limestone create natural patterns and shadows that shift with the sun. Some researchers have suggested that portal tombs like Poulnabrone may have been aligned to mark seasonal or solar events, allowing light to illuminate the interior chamber at specific times of year. Could the dolmen have functioned as an ancient calendar, a tool for tracking the cycles of nature, or as a ceremonial stage for rites synchronized with the sun and stars? The evidence is subtle and fragmentary, yet the precision of placement and orientation hints at knowledge that may have been both practical and spiritual. The human element adds another dimension to the mystery. Osteological analysis of the remains found beneath Poulnabrone reveals a mixed assemblage of ages and sexes, indicating that the dolmen served as a collective tomb over centuries. Artifacts discovered alongside the bones, stone axes, pottery, and personal ornaments, offer glimpses into the lives and beliefs of the people who used it. Yet the broader context remains elusive. Why were these remains interred in this particular chamber? Were certain individuals selected for reasons now lost to time, or was the dolmen a communal repository, a sacred vessel for the collective memory of the group. The absence of written records leaves these questions unanswered, allowing the site itself to speak in silence. Intriguingly, Poulnabrone shares characteristics with other megalithic tombs across Ireland, Britain, and continental Europe, yet it also possesses unique features. Its simplicity, its raised capstone, and its integration with the fractured limestone landscape of the Burren set it apart. Could this represent a localized evolution of portal tomb design, influenced by both practical and symbolic considerations? Or might the dolmen reflect an entirely different layer of meaning, one encoded in stone, space, and light, accessible only to those who understood its language? The answers remain tantalizingly out of reach. Folklore and tradition have long surrounded Poulnabrone and other Irish dolmens. Stories of spirits, ancient heroes, and enchanted gatherings imbue these sites with layers of narrative, connecting the tangible stones with the intangible world of memory, myth, and imagination. These tales, while not historical fact, underscore the enduring human response to monumental stone. Awe, reverence, and the desire to find meaning in structures whose origin and purpose are partially lost to time. Standing before Poulnabrone today, one is struck by its presence, its quiet authority, and the deliberate intention etched into its design. The dolmen invites contemplation. What knowledge guided its builders? How did they perceive death, ritual, and the cosmos? And perhaps most poignantly, what aspects of their understanding have been lost to the millennia, leaving only the stones themselves as witnesses to vanished lives, practices, and beliefs? Like Shaori Fortress, the Gallic Hillforts, the Cairn of Barnenez, Meg, Cuicuilco, Ha'amanga, Maui, Kokino, and the Mycenaean tombs, Poulnabrone Dolmen stands as a testament to human curiosity, ingenuity, and the desire to mark existence in enduring stone. It reminds us that even the simplest of structures can carry profound significance, and that the mysteries of the past often endure longer than the lives of those who created them. What secrets does Poulnabrone still guard within its chamber and beneath the Burren's fractured limestone? And as we continue to observe, study, and imagine, how much of its story will remain hidden, silently waiting to be rediscovered? From the windswept limestone plains of Ireland, where Poulnabrone Dolmen has silently borne witness to millennia of human presence and ritual, our journey now extends eastward, across vast landscapes and shifting climates, to the remote regions of the North Caucasus in Russia. Here, amid undulating hills and isolated valleys, we encounter the Taverskoye Dolmen, a megalithic structure both striking and enigmatic. Its massive stone blocks arranged with a precision that speaks to human ingenuity and intention. The dolmen rises from the earth like a portal to another era, the capstone resting upon vertical slabs, forming a chamber that has remained largely undisturbed for thousands of years. Its isolation amplifies its mystery, a monument quietly asserting its presence in a land of wind, stone, and silence. The Taverskoye Dolmen is generally dated to the Bronze Age, roughly between 2500 and 2000 BCE, placing it among the earliest known megalithic constructions in the region. These dolmens, part of a broader tradition scattered across the North Caucasus, reveal sophisticated construction techniques. Massive stones quarried from nearby outcrops, carefully transported over uneven terrain, and meticulously arranged to form enduring chambers. How these early builders managed such feats without advanced tools, machinery, or wheeled transport remains an enduring puzzle. Was it sheer human will, communal effort, or knowledge lost to time that enabled them to erect these monumental structures in such remote, unforgiving landscapes? The location of the Taverskoye Dolmen is particularly striking. Perched on a slight rise amid rolling hills, it commands expansive views of the surrounding valleys and distant mountains, yet it is secluded, often accessible only via narrow paths that wind through rugged terrain. This duality, visibility yet isolation, suggests intentionality. Was the dolmen placed here for practical purposes, as a marker of territory or a refuge for select communities? Or did the site carry deeper symbolic or ritual significance, a threshold between the mundane world and the spiritual or celestial realms? Some researchers note the careful orientation of certain dolmens toward prominent landscape features, hinting at an awareness of topography, solar paths, or other natural cycles. Could Taverskoye have functioned as an observatory, a ceremonial space, or a sacred landmark, its purpose known only to those who constructed and used it? The chamber itself is a study in precision and endurance. The vertical slabs, arranged to support the massive capstone, create a sheltered interior that has preserved traces of human activity over millennia. Excavations at Taverskoye have revealed fragments of pottery, stone tools, and evidence of burials, suggesting that the dolmen functioned as a place of ritual and remembrance. Yet the sparse material remains leave the broader narrative tantalizingly incomplete. Who were the individuals interred here, and what criteria determined their inclusion? Were these dolmens communal tombs, reserved for elite figures, or perhaps both, blending social hierarchy with spiritual practice? The megalithic tradition of the North Caucasus, including Taverskoye, is remarkable not only for its scale, but for its continuity and variation. Across the region, dolmens share certain characteristics: stone construction, chambered interiors, capstones, but differ in orientation, size, and decorative elements. Some feature cup marks or subtle carvings, though much of the symbolic language remains undeciphered. Do these variations reflect regional preferences, chronological evolution, or distinct cultural meanings now lost to time? And why did communities repeatedly return to this form of monumental construction, dedicating immense effort to structures whose enduring significance we can only partially grasp? Intriguingly, Taverskoye and other North Caucasus dolmens exist in a landscape rich with natural features, mountains, rivers, and valleys, that may have influenced both practical and symbolic decisions. Certain alignments suggest awareness of sunrise, sunset, or specific topographical markers, implying an understanding of cycles, orientation, and perhaps ritual timing. Were these ancient builders attempting to map celestial events, integrate their constructions with the rhythms of nature, or mark sacred space in ways now obscured by millennia? The evidence is subtle, fragmentary, and open to interpretation, yet it invites reflection on the depth of knowledge possessed by societies often perceived as primitive in comparison to later civilizations. The isolation of Taverskoye also raises questions about its social and cultural context. Unlike permanent settlements, dolmens often appear in relative seclusion, away from large habitation areas. Does this indicate that the structures were intended for ceremonial gatherings, visited only at specific times, or were they enduring symbols of lineage, authority, or cosmological understanding, standing alone as markers of human presence across the landscape? And how did the people who built these dolmens perceive them? As sacred spaces, communal monuments, or bridges to a world beyond the tangible? Standing before Taverskoye today, the enormity of the stones and the precision of their arrangement are immediately striking. Each block, each careful placement, is a testament to human ingenuity and intention, yet the full purpose of the dolmen remains elusive. We can see the traces of ritual, the evidence of construction skill, and the integration with the surrounding landscape, but the deeper meanings, social, spiritual, or astronomical, linger just beyond our understanding. What knowledge guided its creation, and how much of that knowledge has been lost? What stories, beliefs, or ceremonies unfolded within this simple yet monumental chamber, now silent and weathered by time? Like Poulnabrone Dolmen, Shaori Fortress, the Gallic Hillforts, Barnenez, Long Meg, Cuicuilco, Amanga, Maui, Kokino, and the Mycenaean tombs. The Taverskoye Dolmen stands as a testament to human curiosity, ambition, and the desire to leave an enduring mark upon the world. It reminds us that even in isolation, across vast distances and varied landscapes, humans sought to shape their environment, observe the cosmos, and commemorate life and death in ways that continue to inspire awe. And as we contemplate Taverskoye today, one question remains. What secrets does this remote dolmen still guard, silently enduring the passage of millennia, waiting for those willing to observe, reflect, and wonder? From the remote valleys of the North Caucasus, where Taverskoye Dolmen stands as a testament to Bronze Age ingenuity and ritual, we now travel northward to the flat plains and dense forests of southern Sweden. Here, near the small village of Blomsholm in Bohuslän, an extraordinary and enigmatic formation emerges from the earth, the Blomsholm stone ship. Unlike the towering megaliths of Georgia or Ireland, this monument is subtle in scale but immense in conceptual ambition. It takes the form of a stone ship, a ceremonial outline of a vessel etched into the landscape, its massive stones arranged with meticulous care to form the prow, stern, and hull. From above, the arrangement is unmistakable. A stone-crafted vessel frozen in time, pointing towards the horizon, a silent tribute or perhaps a memorial whose full significance has been lost to history. The Blomsholm stone ship is generally dated to the Nordic Bronze Age, roughly between 1000 and 500 BCE, a period marked by complex social hierarchies, expanding trade networks, and a growing emphasis on ritualized commemoration. Stone ships, or skeppssättningar, are found across Scandinavia, and their purpose has long fascinated scholars. Were they markers of burial, symbols of journeys to the afterlife, or representations of cosmological beliefs that bound communities to sea, sky, and the cycles of nature? Blomsholm, with its carefully aligned stones stretching over 40 meters in length, is among the largest and most well-preserved of these structures, drawing the eye not only to its form, but to its relationship with the surrounding landscape. The site's location itself raises questions. Situated amidst open fields and lightly forested hills, the stone ship commands a view of the surrounding plains, yet remains subtly integrated into the environment. Some stones are positioned to catch the morning light, others the evening glow, suggesting that their placement may have held astronomical or symbolic significance. Could the builders have intended the vessel to align with solstices, lunar cycles, or the rising and setting of particular stars? Or was the orientation dictated more by the contours of the land, the soil, and practical considerations of construction? The careful balance of geometry and terrain hints at a nuanced understanding of both space and perception, a design that is at once functional, symbolic, and profoundly human. Unlike contemporary burial mounds or megalithic tombs, the stone ship does not house a chambered interior, yet it is often associated with cremation burials nearby. Excavations at Blomsholm have revealed traces of funerary activity, charred bones, pottery fragments, and remnants of ritual deposits, indicating that the monument was part of a broader ceremonial landscape. The relationship between the stone ship itself and the interments, however, is far from fully understood. Was the ship a symbolic vessel, guiding the dead on a journey across the sea of the afterlife? Or was it a territorial marker, asserting lineage, power, or sacred association in a landscape shared by multiple communities? The absence of written records leaves these questions tantalizingly open. The construction of Blomsholm required remarkable coordination and knowledge. Each stone, some weighing several tons, had to be transported, shaped, and positioned with precision. How was such monumental effort organized in an era without wheeled transport or metal tools? Was it the result of communal labor, led by a figure of authority, or part of a ritualized practice where the act of building itself held symbolic power? The alignment and careful spacing of stones suggest that the builders had a conceptual understanding not only of scale, but of the way human perception interacts with landscape and form. The stone ship becomes not merely a monument, but an experiential space, a place where observer and object engage in a dialogue that stretches across millennia. Blomsholm also exists within a broader network of Scandinavian megalithic and ritual sites. Stone ships, burial mounds, standing stones, and ceremonial enclosures form patterns across the region, hinting at shared cultural practices and cosmological ideas. Yet each site possesses distinct characteristics: the dimensions of the stones, the curvature of the hull, the integration with natural topography, and the presence or absence of associated burials all vary. What determined these differences? Were they regional preferences, reflections of social hierarchy, or experiments in symbolic representation? And how much of the meaning embedded in these forms has been lost, leaving only the enduring geometry as a silent witness to a worldview that is now largely inaccessible? Legends and oral tradition further enhance the mystery of Blomsholm. Local folklore speaks of ancient chieftains, sea voyages, and heroic deeds, intertwining the monument with stories that survive in memory, even as direct knowledge of its original purpose fades. These narratives, while not literal history, underscore the human need to interpret and inhabit monumental spaces, to connect them with identity, memory, and imagination. In this way, Blomsholm is not simply stone in the earth, it is a vessel of cultural continuity, a stage for human interaction across centuries, a tangible reminder of the interplay between mortality, ritual, and memory. Standing within the stone ship today, one is struck by the subtlety and elegance of the form. The long, curving lines of the stones suggest movement, a journey, a vessel poised for passage, yet frozen in time. The sheer physical presence of the monument is complemented by the questions it evokes. Why was this site chosen? What rituals were enacted here, and by whom? How did the people who built it conceive of life, death, and the cosmos? And how much of that understanding is now irretrievably lost? Blomsholm, like Taverskoye Dolmen, Poulnabrone, Shaori Fortress, the Gallic Hillforts, the Cairn of Barnenez, Long Meg, Cuicuilco, Ha'amonga, Maui, Kokino, and the Mycenaean tombs, reminds us that human beings have long sought to create enduring forms to mark, understand, and shape their world. Each stone, each alignment, each monumental gesture is a question left for us to ponder, a connection across time that challenges our understanding and invites reflection. The stone ship of Blomsholm endures not simply as a relic of the past, but as a space of wonder and contemplation, a monument whose silence speaks volumes. And yet, for all that has been uncovered and interpreted, Blomsholm retains its mystery. What symbolic knowledge guided the placement of each stone? What ceremonies, beliefs, or cosmic observations were encoded within its shape? And perhaps most compellingly, what remains hidden, waiting in plain sight, for the careful observer to rediscover and reimagine, bridging the gap between past and present, earth and sky, life and the journey beyond life. From the windswept plains of southern Sweden, where Blomsholm's stone ship traces the contours of an ancient sea-bound imagination, our journey now turns southwest, across the European continent, to the sun-drenched landscapes of Andalusia, Spain. Near the town of Antequera, set against the backdrop of limestone cliffs and rolling hills, stands the Menga Dolmen, a monumental portal tomb of immense scale and enigmatic purpose. Its massive stones rise with a deliberate solidity, the capstone stretching nearly 27 meters, supported by towering vertical slabs that form an interior chamber as awe-inspiring as it is enigmatic. Here, the earth seems to have been transformed by human hands into a space that transcends the ordinary, a threshold between life, death, and the cosmos. The Menga Dolmen is dated to the Neolithic period, roughly 3,750 to 3,650 BCE, placing it among the earliest and largest megalithic tombs in Europe. Its construction demonstrates a remarkable understanding of geometry, engineering, and landscape integration. The sheer size of the stones, some weighing over 180 tons, challenges conventional assumptions about what prehistoric societies could achieve. How did the builders quarry, transport, and position these colossal blocks with the tools and technology available at the time? Was it communal labor, guided by ritual, a feat of engineering ingenuity, or both? And what drove these early societies to undertake such monumental efforts in a time when survival alone demanded considerable attention and energy? The dolmen is aligned with striking precision. Unlike most megalithic tombs, Menga's axis is oriented toward the sacred Torcal de Antequera, a series of jagged limestone formations visible in the distance. This alignment is unique among European dolmens, suggesting that its placement was influenced not only by practical considerations, but by a deliberate relationship with the surrounding landscape. Could this orientation indicate an early form of sacred geography, a connection between tomb, mountain, and sky that held symbolic or cosmological meaning for the Neolithic builders? Was the Torcal de Antequera a spiritual marker, a reference point in ritual practice, or an early observatory guiding both ceremonial and temporal cycles? Inside, the chamber evokes both awe and mystery. The interior space is formed by upright slabs carefully aligned to bear the immense weight of the capstone, creating a long, narrow corridor that culminates in a recess at the far end. Excavations have revealed human remains, pottery, and various artifacts, pointing to its use as a burial site. Yet the chamber's monumental scale exceeds what would be necessary to accommodate the remains, hinting at purposes beyond the practical. Was the dolmen designed to amplify ritual presence, to awe participants, or to connect the human and the divine in a tangible, spatial experience? Could the construction itself have been a form of ceremony, where the act of raising each stone was imbued with spiritual significance, a tangible expression of belief, power, or social cohesion? The Menga Dolmen's construction techniques remain a subject of fascination. The massive capstone is believed to have been transported from a quarry several kilometers away, across uneven terrain, using methods that remain speculative. Some scholars propose the use of wooden rollers, earthen ramps, or sophisticated leverage techniques, yet no definitive evidence survives. How did these communities achieve such precision in placement, balancing massive stones so that they endure millennia without mortar or binding materials? And how much of this knowledge, embedded in stone, has been lost, leaving only the monument itself as evidence of human ingenuity and understanding? Beyond its engineering and alignment, the dolmen evokes questions about the social and ritual context of its construction. Unlike smaller tombs, Menga is a collective effort on a monumental scale, implying organization, labor division, and a cultural framework capable of sustaining a long-term, coordinated project. Who were the individuals or communities who undertook this labor, and what motivated them? Were they driven by ancestor worship, communal identity, or a desire to assert territorial and spiritual authority across the landscape? And why was this particular location, with its commanding views of the Torcal and surrounding valleys, chosen as the site for a monument of such enduring presence? Menga is also part of a larger prehistoric landscape that includes the nearby Dolmen of Vieira and the Tholos of El Romeral, forming a constellation of megalithic constructions whose interrelations are not yet fully understood. Do these sites represent sequential development, hierarchical differentiation, or ritual complementarity? Some researchers suggest astronomical alignments, seasonal markers, or symbolic representations embedded within the architecture and orientation. Others propose that their arrangement reflects social structures or territorial claims, and yet definitive answers remain elusive, allowing these monuments to speak to us across millennia with questions rather than conclusions. Legends and local lore enrich the mystery of Menga. Tales of giants, sacred mountains, and miraculous labor surround the site, narratives passed through generations that imbue the dolmen with a presence beyond its physical form. While not historical evidence, these stories testify to the enduring human fascination with monumental stone and the impulse to explain the seemingly impossible. They remind us that Menga has always existed as both an object of practical construction and a canvas for imagination, memory, and meaning. Standing at the entrance to the Menga Dolmen today, one is struck by its monumental presence, the careful alignment, and the sense of intention embedded in every stone. The chamber stretches ahead like a corridor through time, inviting reflection on the lives, beliefs, and knowledge of its builders. How did they conceive of life, death, and the cosmos? What symbolic, spiritual, or practical purposes guided each decision in the selection, transport, and placement of stones? And perhaps most poignantly, what remains hidden beneath the earth and within the stones themselves, waiting to reveal secrets to those patient enough to observe, study, and wonder? Like Blomsholm Stone Ship, Taverskoye Dolmen, Poulnabrone, Shaori Fortress, the Gallic Hillforts, the Cairn of Barnenez, Long Meg, Cuicuilco, Ha'amonga, Maui, Kokino, and the Mycenaean tombs, Menga Dolmen reminds us that ancient structures are more than remnants of the past. They are repositories of human imagination, ingenuity, and a desire to connect with forces beyond the immediate world. Each stone, each alignment, each monumental gesture invites contemplation, bridging the millennia between their builders and us. And as we stand before Menga, we are left with questions as enduring as the stones themselves. What knowledge, ritual, or belief guided its construction? How much of that understanding has been lost to time? And what secrets does this massive, enduring monument still guard, silently watching over the hills of Andalusia, waiting for those willing to witness and wonder? From the sun-soaked plains of Andalusia, where Menga Dolmen rises with monumental authority against the Torcal de Antequera, our journey now returns northward to the rolling hills and fertile valleys of Somerset, England. Here, nestled within the verdant landscape of the Mendip Hills, lies the stony Littleton Long Barrow, a Neolithic tomb whose unassuming exterior belies its profound significance. Unlike the massive dolmens of Spain or the stone ships of Sweden, this long barrow stretches quietly across the earth, its mound of earth and stone forming a deliberate, elongated silhouette that seems to echo the contours of the land itself. Yet within this seemingly simple form lies a mystery that has captivated archaeologists, historians, and visitors for centuries. The stony Littleton Long Barrow is generally dated to around 3700 BCE, placing it firmly within the Neolithic period, a time when communities across Britain were constructing monumental tombs to honor the dead and perhaps to mark territory, lineage, or cosmic awareness. The barrow is roughly 30 meters long and 5 meters high, composed of earth and carefully arranged stones that create a subtle but unmistakable presence in the landscape. Excavations reveal a carefully constructed passageway running into the heart of the mound, with several burial chambers branching from the central corridor. The design is sophisticated, creating not only a place for interment, but also a space imbued with meaning, light, and shadow, a silent theater of ritual and remembrance. The entrance to the barrow is particularly compelling, A narrow passage, framed by upright stones, leads into the chambers within, creating a sense of transition from the ordinary world into a space of reverence and mystery. Here, light falls in slanting lines, illuminating parts of the interior while leaving others in shadow, suggesting a careful consideration of perception and atmosphere. Was this interplay of light and stone intentional, a way to enhance ritual experience, or merely a byproduct of construction techniques? Could the Barrow's passageways have been aligned to mark seasonal events, such as the winter solstice, when the sun's rays penetrate to touch the inner chamber? Archaeologists continue to debate, yet the precision and intent of the builders is undeniable. Inside, the stony Littleton long barrow houses evidence of multiple burials. Skeletal remains, arranged carefully within the chambers, reveal that this was a communal tomb used over generations. Pottery fragments, flint tools, and occasional ornaments accompany the bones, hinting at funerary rituals and the beliefs of the communities who built it. Yet the arrangement and selection of remains raise questions. Were certain individuals chosen for specific burial chambers according to status, role, or lineage? Or did the barrow function as a collective space, emphasizing communal identity and continuity over individual distinction? And what symbolic meaning might the elongated shape of the mound itself convey, stretching across the landscape like a deliberate marker of human presence, life, and death? The construction techniques of Stony Littleton are notable for their subtlety and sophistication. Unlike the massive monolithic stones of Iberian dolmens or the intricate geometry of Scandinavian stone ships, this barrow combines earth and stone with careful attention to weight, stability, and spatial arrangement. The chambers were created with corbelled stone roofs, carefully stacked to prevent collapse, demonstrating a keen understanding of engineering principles. How did these Neolithic communities acquire such knowledge, and how did they organize the labor required to construct a monument of this size and complexity? Was the act of building itself a form of ritual, reinforcing social bonds, spiritual belief, or collective identity? Stony Littleton. Long Barrow exists within a broader Neolithic landscape, connected to other long barrows, burial mounds, and ritual sites across southern England. The placement of these structures often follows patterns that suggest awareness of topography, sightlines, and perhaps astronomical cycles. Could the builders have been marking territorial boundaries, creating networks of ritual spaces, or aligning their monuments with the sun, moon, and stars? The evidence is tantalizing but incomplete, leaving interpretation open to careful speculation rather than certainty. In this way, the barrow speaks not only of those buried within, but also of the culture, knowledge, and worldview of the people who constructed it. Beyond the practical and architectural considerations, Stony Littleton also evokes questions about human perception of death, memory, and time. The very act of placing the dead within stone and earth transforms ephemeral life into enduring presence, creating a monument that bridges generations. The barrow embodies both permanence and transition, standing as a testament to human curiosity, ingenuity, and reverence. Did the builders view the passageways as conduits between the living and the ancestral, the earthly and the spiritual? Did the elongated mound itself carry symbolic meaning, a visual language recognizable to those initiated into its significance but largely opaque to outsiders today? Folklore and oral tradition further enrich the mystery. Tales of spirits, ritual gatherings, and ancient knowledge circulate around the Mendip Hills, linking Stony Littleton with an intangible human heritage that endures even as physical evidence decays. Such stories remind us that monumental structures are not only functional or symbolic, they are cultural anchors, inspiring awe, memory, and imagination across centuries. The barrow becomes more than stone and earth. It is a canvas of continuity, a space where the past and present meet, where observation invites reflection and where silence speaks as profoundly as any written record. Standing at the entrance of Stony Littleton today, one feels the weight of centuries pressing softly yet insistently. The mound stretches before you, each carefully placed stone a testament to the vision, skill, and determination of people whose lives and beliefs remain partially obscured. How did they conceive of life and death, community and cosmos, the individual and the collective? What ceremonies, beliefs, or cosmological understandings were embedded in the architecture, now mostly lost to time? And what remains hidden within the mound itself, silently guarding secrets that have withstood the passage of millennia? Like Menga Dolmen, Blomsholm Stone Ship, Taverskoye Dolmen, Poulnabrone, Shaori Fortress, the Gallic Hillforts, the Cairn of Barnenez, Long Meg, Cuicuilco, Ha'amanga, Maui, Kokino, and the Mycenaean tombs. Stony Littleton Long Barrow reminds us that human beings have long sought to create enduring spaces that connect life and death, earth and sky, the tangible and the sacred. Each stone, each chamber, each carefully planned axis is a question, an invitation to wonder, and a connection across millennia. As we contemplate this ancient mound today, one final question lingers in the quiet of the Mendip Hills. What knowledge, intention, or ritual is still encoded in the stones of Stony Littleton, waiting for those patient enough to observe, reflect, and imagine? From the rolling hills of Somerset, where Stony Littleton Long Barrow stretches its elongated form across verdant fields, we now journey northward across the Irish Sea to the rugged landscapes of Orkney, Scotland. Here, amidst windswept moors, scattered boulders, and the constant whisper of the North Atlantic, stands the Bargloy chambered cairn, an enigmatic monument of Neolithic ingenuity. Its low mound, composed of earth and carefully arranged stones, conceals a chambered interior that has endured for over 5 millennia. The cairn seems to rise naturally from the land, yet closer inspection reveals a meticulous organization of stones and passageways, a deliberate space shaped by human hands for purposes that remain partly obscured by the passage of time. Bargloy chambered cairn is generally dated to around 3,500 to 3,000 BCE, contemporaneous with other remarkable Neolithic structures in Orkney, such as Mycenaean and the Ring of Brodgar. Yet, Bargloy is distinct in its subtlety. Unlike grand ceremonial complexes, this cairn blends seamlessly with its environment, appearing almost as a natural rise in the moor, until one notices the careful alignment of stones forming a corridor into the heart of the mound. What motivated these early builders to choose this location, here on exposed ground, subjected to relentless winds and seasonal storms? Was the site chosen for visibility, for sacred resonance with the surrounding landscape, or for reasons now hidden from our understanding? The cairn's internal architecture is as compelling as its exterior. The passageway, constructed from upright stones capped with massive slabs, leads into one or more burial chambers. The careful selection, shaping, and placement of stones indicate a sophisticated understanding of load distribution and structural stability, a technical knowledge remarkable for communities without metal tools or modern machinery. How did these early builders achieve such precision? And, beyond the practical, how much of the construction process was imbued with symbolic meaning? Could the act of building itself, moving and arranging stones, creating corridors of shadow and light, have been a form of ritual, a way of connecting the living with the ancestors, or the terrestrial with the cosmic? Excavations of Bargloy have revealed human remains, pottery fragments, and occasional flint tools, indicating the cairn's use as a burial site. The skeletal remains suggest repeated interments over generations, implying that this was a place of sustained ritual significance. Yet the chambers are modest in scale compared to some larger Orkney tombs, prompting questions about social hierarchy, selection, and the intended function of the cairn. Was Bargloy a communal burial space for a small community, or did it hold symbolic meaning extending beyond the interred individuals? And why do we see a consistent architectural language across multiple cairns in Orkney, yet with variations that remain unexplained? The orientation and positioning of Bargloy Cairn offer further mysteries. Like many Neolithic monuments, the passageway appears carefully aligned with landscape features and possibly solar events. Some researchers have speculated that such alignments may have allowed sunlight to penetrate the inner chamber at specific times of the year, marking solstices or equinoxes. If so, the cairn would serve not only as a burial site, but as a marker of cosmic cycles, a spatial reflection of temporal rhythms that structured Neolithic life. Were these alignments intended for practical observation, ceremonial experience, or symbolic connection to celestial events? The evidence is subtle and fragmentary, yet it suggests a worldview in which human activity, the landscape, and the cosmos were profoundly interconnected. Bargloy is part of a broader Neolithic landscape in Orkney, a region remarkable for its density of megalithic monuments. Nearby cairns, standing stones, and ceremonial sites form networks that hint at shared knowledge, social organization, and ritual practice. Yet each site is unique, reflecting local adaptations, cultural choices, or specific ceremonial purposes. Why were some cairns monumental and easily visible, while others, like Bargloy, are more understated, almost hidden within the terrain? Could these variations indicate different social functions, stages in ritual practice, or levels of access to sacred knowledge? And how much of the meaning encoded in stone has been irrevocably lost, leaving only tantalizing hints for us to interpret? The cairn also invites reflection on the interplay between human life and memory. By placing the dead within stone chambers, these early communities created enduring markers of continuity, identity, and cosmology. Each stone, carefully positioned and preserved, embodies an intention to communicate across generations, a message about mortality, ritual, and the human desire to assert presence in the landscape. Did the builders of Bargloy perceive these chambers as thresholds, connecting the living to the ancestral, the earth to the sky? And in doing so, were they shaping not only memory but experience, crafting spaces in which the passage of time, the play of light, and the movement of humans would become part of the ritual narrative? Local legend and tradition add another layer of fascination. Tales of spirits, ancient heroes, and sacred gatherings linger in the Orkney Islands, connecting communities to the cairns that dot the moors. While folklore cannot be taken as historical evidence, it underscores the enduring human engagement with monumental stone. The stories reveal a continuity of perception, in which these monuments remain not merely as archaeological artifacts, but as active components of cultural imagination, bridging past and present, tangible and intangible. Standing at the entrance of the Bargloy chambered cairn today, one is struck by its quiet presence. The wind sweeps across the moor, the distant sea glints under the low sun, and the stones bear silent witness to thousands of years of human life, ritual, and imagination. Each upright slab, each carefully placed capstone, is a testament to skill, intention, and belief. Yet, for all that is known, the cairn retains its mysteries. The exact methods of construction, the specific ritual practices, and the meaning of its orientation and placement remain subjects of speculation. What secrets does Bargloy still hold within its chambers, beneath the moss and lichen, and in the alignment of its stones? What knowledge, beliefs, or rituals are encoded in this subtle, enduring monument, waiting for those willing to look, reflect, and wonder? Like Stony Littleton Long Barrow, Menga Dolmen, Blomsholm Stone Ship, Taverskoye Dolmen, Poulnabrone, Shaori Fortress, the Gallic Hillforts, the Cairn of Barnenez, Long Meg, Cuicuilco, Manga, Maui, Kokino, and the Mycenaean tombs. Bargloy chambered cairn reminds us that human beings have long sought to shape their environment, commemorate life, and engage with forces beyond the immediate. Each stone, each chamber, each deliberate alignment speaks across millennia, inviting us to contemplate not only the technical and social achievements of our ancestors, but also their imagination, belief systems, and capacity to create enduring spaces of wonder. And as we stand before Bargloy today, the final question lingers in the stillness of the Scottish moor. What remains hidden within the cairn, waiting silently for those who are willing to observe, reflect, and imagine the world as its builders once conceived it? From the windswept moors of Orkney, where Bargloy chambered cairn silently bears witness to millennia of human ritual and ingenuity, we return once more to the Iberian Peninsula, to the fertile plains of Huelva in southern Spain. Here, nestled amidst gentle hills and olive groves, lies the Dolmen de Soto, a remarkable Neolithic monument whose scale, orientation, and enduring presence have inspired fascination for generations. Unlike the broad, sprawling Menga Dolmen in Antequera, Dolmen de Soto is linear and purposeful, its long corridor leading toward a central burial chamber, a deliberate architectural act that transforms the landscape into a sacred conduit between the human and the eternal. Dolmen de Soto is generally dated to between 4000 and 3000 BCE, a period of remarkable innovation in Neolithic Iberia. Its construction demonstrates both ambition and precision. Massive stones, some weighing several tons, form a corridor more than 20 meters in length, culminating in a chamber whose walls, roof, and layout suggest careful consideration of proportion, stability, and symbolic resonance. How did these early builders manipulate such enormous stones with only rudimentary tools, and what cultural impetus drove them to undertake such monumental effort? Was it simply the desire to enter the dead, or did the very act of construction carry ritual meaning, reinforcing community cohesion, social hierarchy, or spiritual authority? The most compelling feature of Dolmen de Soto is its orientation. The corridor is aligned with the rising sun during the winter solstice, allowing sunlight to penetrate the passage and illuminate the inner chamber at a precise moment each year. This remarkable alignment transforms the dolmen into a seasonal observatory, an instrument of both ritual and temporal measurement. What knowledge guided the builders in achieving such precision? Were they observing the sky over generations, embedding cosmic awareness into their architecture? And how much of their understanding, mathematical, astronomical, or spiritual, has been lost to time, leaving only the stones as witnesses to a sophisticated worldview now partially hidden from our perception? Inside the corridor and chamber, the evidence of human activity is both tangible and enigmatic. Excavations have revealed multiple burials, as well as pottery, flint tools, and fragments of personal adornments, suggesting that the dolmen was used over centuries as a place of repeated interment. Yet the organization of the remains and artifacts raises questions. Were individuals selected for burial according to social status, familial lineage, or ritual importance? And why is the corridor's design so deliberate, creating a journey of movement, light, and shadow that seems intended to guide participants from the outside world into a sacred interior space? Could the dolmen have functioned as both tomb and ceremonial theater, a space where the living interacted with the ancestors through structured, purposeful experience? The construction techniques of Dolmen de Soto are striking in their combination of simplicity and ingenuity. The corridor is formed from massive orthostats, carefully spaced and topped with horizontal slabs, creating a structure that has endured millennia. Some researchers suggest that wooden levers, Earthen ramps and coordinated communal labor were employed to transport and place the stones, yet the precision achieved still challenges modern imagination. How did these communities organize such projects without centralized authority or complex machinery? And beyond the practical, what symbolic or ritual significance might the act of lifting, aligning, and sealing each stone have held? The process of building itself may have been as meaningful as the finished monument. Dolmen de Soto also exists within a landscape rich in Neolithic monuments, including nearby Dolmen de Menga and other smaller passage tombs. This clustering raises questions about cultural networks, territorial markers, and ritual landscapes. Were these sites interconnected through ceremonial practice, aligned for cosmic observation, or markers of shared social identity? And what factors determined their variation in size, orientation, and construction technique? The answers remain speculative, yet the consistency and sophistication of these monuments suggest a deep cultural understanding of both physical space and metaphysical meaning. The interplay of light and shadow within Dolmen de Soto is particularly compelling. At the winter solstice, sunlight streams along the corridor, reaching the inner chamber and illuminating the stones in a fleeting, almost ethereal display. This intentional use of light transforms the dolmen from a static tomb into a dynamic instrument of temporal awareness and spiritual reflection. Was this effect intended to mark seasonal cycles for agricultural purposes, ritualized timekeeping, or to symbolize the passage of life, death, and rebirth? And if so, what other subtle phenomena, unnoticed by modern eyes, might the builders have encoded within the architecture, linking earthly space with celestial movement in ways we can scarcely reconstruct? Legends and oral traditions surrounding the Dolmen de Soto, while fragmentary, underscore the enduring fascination these monuments inspire. Local narratives speak of spirits, ancestral guardians, and sacred rites, reminding us that the dolmen has always occupied a liminal space between the tangible and the mystical. Such stories, though not historical evidence, highlight the human impulse to interpret monumental constructions as vessels of memory, identity, and imagination. In this sense, Dolmen de Soto is not merely stone and earth. It is a conduit through which generations have engaged with questions of existence, mortality, and the cosmos. Standing within the corridor today, one is struck by the sensory experience, the narrow passage, the careful alignment of stones, the faint interplay of light and shadow. The dolmen exudes both permanence and intimacy, a monumental space designed for reflection, ritual, and connection. Each stone, each axis, each alignment is a deliberate act of intention, a dialogue between the builders and the world around them. Yet, for all that is evident, the dolmen retains its mysteries. The full scope of its ceremonial use, the precise methods of construction, and the symbolic significance encoded in its form continue to elude definitive interpretation. Like Bargloy chambered cairn, Stony Littleton long barrow, Menga Dolmen, Blomsholm stone ship, Taverskoye Dolmen, Poulnabrone, Shaori Fortress, the Gallic Hillforts, the Cairn of Barnenez, Long Meg, Cuicuilco, Manga, Maui, Kokino, and the Mycenaean tombs. Dolmen de Soto reminds us that human beings have long sought to create enduring spaces that bridge life, death, and the cosmos. Each stone, each chamber, each alignment speaks across millennia, inviting us to contemplate not only technical achievement, but also the beliefs, rituals, and imagination of those who constructed it. And as we stand within its corridor today, one final question lingers, suspended between shadow and sunlight. What secrets, knowledge, or spiritual insight remain hidden within Dolmen de Soto, waiting to be rediscovered by those willing to observe, reflect, and wonder at the ingenuity and intention of our Neolithic ancestors? From the sunlit plains of Huelva, where Dolmen de Soto channels the winter solstice along its meticulously aligned corridor, our journey moves westward to the rolling landscapes of Alentejo, Portugal. Here, amid fields of cork oak, olive trees, and gently undulating hills, rises the Dolmen de Anta Grande do Zambujeiro, one of the most monumental and enigmatic megalithic tombs on the Iberian Peninsula. At first glance, it appears as a simple accumulation of massive stones and earth, yet as one approaches, the scale and precision of its construction become evident. The enormous capstone, supported by upright orthostats forming a central chamber, stretches impressively across the ground, a silent testament to human ambition, ingenuity, and ritual vision from over 5 millennia ago. Dolmen de Anta Grande do Zambujeiro is generally dated to the late Neolithic period, approximately 4,000 to 3,500 BCE. Its scale is extraordinary. The central chamber measures over 6 meters in length and is capped by a single stone weighing several tens of tons. The corridor leading into the tomb is oriented roughly toward the southeast, suggesting potential solar or seasonal alignment. How did these Neolithic builders manipulate stones of such immense weight with rudimentary tools? And beyond the practical challenge of construction, what motivated them to create a space of such monumental permanence? Was it simply a tomb, or did the dolmen serve as a ceremonial stage, a marker of communal identity, or a bridge between the living and the ancestral, the earthly and the celestial? The landscape itself seems integral to the dolmen's design. Perched upon a low rise in the Alentejo countryside, the tomb commands subtle views of the surrounding fields, hills, and distant horizons, yet it also feels isolated, removed from habitation. Did the builders intend this juxtaposition, visibility from afar, yet a sense of seclusion, to enhance the dolmen's spiritual significance? Was the placement of Anta Grande do Zambujeiro guided by sacred geography, cosmological observation, or the symbolic association of particular landforms with the cycles of life, death, and renewal? The alignment of the tomb, combined with its monumental presence, hints at a worldview where landscape, ritual, and human aspiration were deeply intertwined. Inside the chamber, the scale and craftsmanship inspire both awe and reflection. The massive orthostats, carefully placed to support the capstone, create a passageway into the heart of the tomb, a liminal space that invites contemplation. Excavations have revealed evidence of multiple burials, cremated remains, and ceramic artifacts, indicating prolonged use over generations. Yet, questions abound. Were all individuals treated equally, or did placement within the chamber convey social, familial, or ritual significance? And how might the experience of entering the chamber, walking along the stone-lined corridor, entering the dim, enclosed space, have influenced perception, ceremony, and spiritual engagement? The construction of the dolmen suggests sophisticated knowledge of geometry, weight distribution, and communal coordination. Transporting capstones of tens of tons from quarries, arranging orthostats with precision, and erecting the structure to endure millennia required not only physical labor, but careful planning and understanding of material properties. Did these communities employ techniques that have been lost to time, now incomprehensible to modern observers? And might the act of construction itself have been a ritual, a performative engagement with the sacred binding people, stone, and landscape in a network of meaning that transcended the practical? The dolmen's orientation and design raise further intriguing possibilities. The southeast alignment may have allowed sunlight to penetrate the corridor during specific times of the year, illuminating the chamber in a fleeting, deliberate display. If so, the dolmen functions as both tomb and calendar, an architectural instrument marking temporal cycles. Was this phenomenon intended to connect the living with celestial rhythms to guide agricultural or ritual activities, or to symbolize life's cyclical nature and the journey of the deceased? And if so, what other subtleties, lost alignments, acoustic properties, or visual cues might have been encoded in the design, now obscured by time and erosion. Dolmen de Grande do Zambujeiro also exists within a broader Neolithic landscape, rich in megalithic monuments, burial mounds, and ceremonial sites. Nearby dolmens share certain architectural traits while differing in scale, orientation, and construction, hinting at shared cultural knowledge, yet allowing for regional variation. What determined these differences? Local resources, ritual function, social hierarchy, or a combination of factors? And how much of the cultural logic underlying these monuments is now inaccessible to modern researchers, leaving the stones as both evidence and enigma? Legends and oral traditions in the Alentejo region add another layer to the dolmen's mystery. Local stories speak of ancestral spirits, sacred rites, and ancient knowledge preserved in stone, linking the monument to imagination and memory as well as to tangible history. While folklore cannot provide definitive answers, it underscores the enduring human engagement with monumental constructions and the impulse to imbue the landscape with meaning, wonder, and continuity. In this sense, the dolmen is not merely stone and earth. It is a vessel for human curiosity, reverence, and reflection. Standing before Dolmen de Grande do Zambujeiro today, one is struck by its presence. The massive capstone resting on carefully arranged orthostats, the elongated corridor leading into the chamber, the quiet power of a monument that has endured thousands of years. The dolmen communicates both permanence and subtlety, inviting reflection on the lives, beliefs, and technical skill of its builders. And yet, for all that is known, many questions remain. What precise rituals were conducted within its chambers? What knowledge guided its orientation and construction? And how did the builders perceive their relationship with the land, the cosmos, and their ancestors, weaving these elements into a single monumental form? Like Dolmen de Soto, Bargloy chambered cairn, Stony Littleton long barrow, Menga Dolmen, Blomsholm stone ship, Taverskoye Dolmen, Poulnabrone, Shaori Fortress, the Gallic Hillforts, the Cairn of Barnenez, Long Meg, Cuicuilco, Ha'amanga, Maui, Kokino, and the Mycenaean tombs. Dolmen de Grande do Zambujeiro reminds us that human beings have long sought to shape the earth, commemorate the dead, and engage with forces beyond the immediate. Each stone, each alignment, each monumental gesture is a question left across millennia, a testament to human ambition, ingenuity, and imagination. As we contemplate the dolmen today, standing among the capstone, orthostats, and corridor, one question persists in the quiet Alentejo landscape. What secrets remain hidden within Dolmen de Grande do Zambujeiro, silently guarding the knowledge, rituals, and intentions of a world we can only partially imagine, waiting for those patient enough to observe, reflect, and wonder? From the rolling hills and olive groves of Alentejo, where Dolmen de Grande do Zambujeiro rises in monumental silence, our journey moves across the Mediterranean, the Sahara, and the Sahel to the vast plains of West Africa, where the stone circles of Senegambia, stretching across modern-day Senegal and the Gambia, stand as enduring enigmas of human endeavor and belief. These circles, sometimes consisting of dozens of upright stones arranged with meticulous care across open savannas, are at first striking in their simplicity, yet they radiate an aura of mystery that invites contemplation and study. At sunrise or sunset, shadows stretch between the stones, creating a labyrinth of light and geometry that seems almost designed to bridge the terrestrial and the celestial. The Senegambian stone circles are estimated to date from roughly 300 BCE to 1600 CE, though precise chronologies remain difficult to establish due to the absence of direct written records. Comprising over 1,000 individual sites scattered across Senegal and Gambia, These circles vary in size from a few meters to over 30 meters in diameter. Some stones are small, barely a meter in height, while others tower over 2 meters, arranged in concentric patterns or linear alignments. Archaeological excavations have revealed human burials beneath or near the stones, often accompanied by pottery, iron objects, and beads, indicating that these sites functioned as sacred spaces, both for the dead and for the living who remembered them. Yet the full extent of their purpose, ritual, territorial, astronomical, or ceremonial, remains elusive. Approaching a Senegambian stone circle, one is immediately struck by the sense of scale and deliberation. Each stone has been carefully chosen and erected, often buried partially into the earth to ensure stability, with arrangements that suggest intentional symmetry and alignment. Why did the builders select these particular locations across the rolling plains? Were they guided by natural features, rivers, hills, or valleys, or by unseen cosmological principles, marking the course of the sun, moon, or stars? And if so, what cultural or spiritual framework informed these alignments, allowing communities separated by distance to construct monuments that resonate with order, meaning, and connection? The burials beneath the stones add another layer of mystery. Skeletal remains, sometimes accompanied by personal items or ceremonial objects, indicate that these sites were used repeatedly over centuries. Did each circle serve a distinct community, lineage, or clan? Were certain individuals honored with central placement, while others were interred along the periphery? And beyond practical interment, what ritual or symbolic purpose did the stones themselves serve? Did they act as guardians of the dead, as cosmic markers, or as focal points for collective memory and ancestral veneration? The evidence hints at complex social structures and cosmologies, yet the absence of contemporary texts leaves the full meaning tantalizingly out of reach. The methods of construction and transportation of the stones are also compelling. Although most stones are local, the careful shaping, positioning, and spacing indicate sophisticated planning and communal coordination. How were these efforts organized across centuries and vast territories, and what motivated repeated construction on such monumental scales? Was the act of raising each stone itself a ritualized practice, binding community, land, and cosmos in an enduring physical manifestation of belief? And how much knowledge, mathematical, astronomical, or symbolic, was encoded in these circles, now only partially accessible through archaeology and observation? The arrangement of the circles, with concentric rings or radial lines extending outward, suggests an awareness of geometric principles, a careful manipulation of space to convey both order and meaning. Some researchers have speculated that certain alignments may correspond with solstitial or lunar events, though direct evidence is elusive. Could these sites have functioned as early observatories, linking the cycles of the heavens with earthly ritual and social organization? Or were their designs primarily symbolic, intended to create sacred space and channel the collective attention of the community toward remembrance, reflection, or spiritual communion? The scale and number of sites across Senegal and the Gambia suggest a long-lasting and widespread cultural practice, maintained over centuries by multiple communities. What social, spiritual, or political systems enabled the continuity of this monumental tradition? And how did knowledge of construction, alignment, and ritual practice transmit across generations without written language? Each circle, while unique, forms part of a larger network, hinting at shared cosmology and communal identity, yet leaving the observer to ponder the invisible threads of human connection and cultural memory that once united these sites. Local tradition and oral history add further layers of interpretation. Communities in the region have long recognized these stone circles as sacred spaces, attributing them to ancestors, spirits, or mythic heroes. While folklore cannot be treated as historical evidence, it demonstrates the enduring significance of these monuments and how the human imagination continues to engage with stone, landscape, and memory. The stones, silent for centuries, remain active participants in cultural life, shaping identity, imagination, and reverence across generations. Standing within a Senegambian stone circle today, one is struck by the interplay of scale, symmetry, and environment. The stones rise from the earth with a quiet authority, casting shadows that stretch across the grass as the sun arcs across the sky. Each stone, each alignment, each concentric pattern invites reflection. What did the builders hope to communicate, encode, or preserve? How did they conceive of life, death, and the cosmos in this open savanna, linking the ephemeral human experience with enduring stone? And perhaps most intriguingly, what remains hidden beneath the soil, in the subtle orientation of stones, or in the knowledge once shared across generations, now lost to time? Like Dolmen de Anta, Grande do Zambujeiro, Dolmen de Soto, Bargloy Chambered Cairn, Stony Littleton Long Barrow, Menga Dolmen, Blomsholm Stone Ship, Taverskoye Dolmen, Poulnabrone, Shaori Fortress, the Gallic Hillforts, the Cairn of Barnenez, Long Meg, Cuicuilco, Ha'amanga Maui, Kokino, and the Mycenaean tombs. The stone circles of Senegambia remind us that human beings have long sought to create enduring markers of existence, memory, and belief. Each monument, each stone, each alignment is a question cast across centuries, a testament to imagination, knowledge, and the desire to leave a trace upon the earth. As we stand among the stones today, the quiet of the savanna invites contemplation. What secrets remain within these circles? What knowledge, ritual, or cosmic understanding is still encoded in stone, waiting for those willing to observe, reflect, and wonder? From the open savannas of West Africa, where the stone circles of Senegambia rise silently under the sun, our journey turns eastward, across the Indian Ocean to the teeming tropical landscapes of Sri Lanka. Here, amidst lush forests and cascading waterfalls, soars Sigiriya, the Lion Rock, an immense granite outcrop rising nearly 200 meters above the surrounding plains. From a distance, it resembles a natural monolith, yet closer observation reveals terraces, stairways, water gardens, and the remnants of a vast fortress and palace complex, built with remarkable ingenuity and precision. The scale, placement, and sophistication of Sigiriya have captivated historians, archaeologists, and travelers alike, raising questions about the vision and knowledge of those who shaped this formidable monument centuries ago. Sigiriya is generally dated to the 5th century CE, often attributed to King Kashyapa, who purportedly transformed the rock into a fortified palace complex. Archaeological evidence, however, suggests that the site may have had earlier uses, potentially as a monastic retreat, a ceremonial center, or a spiritual landmark long before the king's reign. How did its builders integrate the natural rock into a monumental architectural vision? The site's verticality and strategic location imply both defensive function and symbolic prominence, suggesting that Sigiriya was intended to dominate the landscape while communicating power, ingenuity, and sacred significance. What inspired such ambition, and how did the builders conceive of space, visibility, and human interaction with the rock itself? Ascending Sigiriya is both a physical and perceptual journey. A network of staircases, terraces, and ramps winds along the vertical cliffs, leading visitors through a carefully orchestrated sequence of spaces. Along the way, one encounters remnants of frescoes painted onto rock surfaces, depicting celestial or courtly figures whose precise purpose remains debated. Were these frescoes purely decorative, or did they serve ritualistic or symbolic functions, guiding the movement of the visitor, the king, or the priestly elite through a choreographed spiritual experience? And how did the builders account for engineering challenges, moving massive stones, leveling terraces, and constructing water channels on such a sheer, unforgiving vertical surface. The fortress complex at Sigiriya incorporates sophisticated hydraulic and urban planning. Pools, fountains, and canals are aligned to capture and control rainfall, while terraced gardens create a series of microenvironments across the slopes. Such precision suggests not only advanced technical knowledge, but also an aesthetic and symbolic sensibility. Water channels may have served practical purposes, but their reflection, rhythm, and integration with the rock could also have communicated cosmic or spiritual ideas. Was Sigiriya conceived as a microcosm, a terrestrial reflection of celestial order? And if so, how much of its symbolism has been lost to time, leaving only fragments for us to interpret today? The so-called Lion Gate, a massive carved portal halfway up the rock, hints at both defensive function and ritual significance. Originally featuring enormous lion paws flanking the entrance, the structure suggests a deliberate statement of authority, power, and awe. Yet much of the structure remains incomplete or eroded, leaving modern observers to wonder at the original intent. Did the lion imagery symbolize protection, divine favor, or a particular spiritual cosmology? And why was the site abandoned shortly after Kashapa's death, leaving this grand vision frozen in partial completion? The absence of written explanation forces us to rely on material evidence, landscape analysis, and informed speculation. Sigiriya's use of natural and artificial space is remarkable. The builders transformed a vertical rock into a complex of chambers, stairways, gardens, and water features, integrating engineering, aesthetics, and symbolism in ways that remain extraordinary even by modern standards. How did these early architects reconcile the technical challenges of such construction with a coherent vision of space, ceremony, and prestige? And how much of their understanding of rock stability, water flow, or visual impact was empirical, inherited through tradition, or inspired by a sophisticated cosmological worldview? Beyond its architectural and technical aspects, Sigiriya invites reflection on human perception, ritual, and power. The vertical ascent, the interplay of sun and shadow, the interplay of gardens and rock surfaces, all combine to create an immersive, almost theatrical experience. Did the king intend this choreography to project authority, to impress visitors, or to facilitate spiritual experience? How did the builders conceive of the visitor's movement through the space, the pacing, the pauses, the viewpoints? And what cultural or religious meanings were encoded in the sequence of terraces, frescoes, and water features, now obscured by centuries of erosion and the passage of human activity? The fortress also exists within a broader landscape of mystery. The surrounding plains contain smaller rock outcrops, ancient irrigation channels, and scattered settlements, suggesting a continuum of human engagement with the terrain. How did the choice of Sigiriya reflect strategic, symbolic, or sacred considerations relative to this broader landscape? Were earlier cultures already recognizing the rock's prominence as a spiritual or ritual site, later appropriated and monumentalized by the king? And if so, what layers of memory, belief, and power are encoded in the rock itself, waiting to be deciphered by those patient enough to study it in context? Standing at the summit of Sigiriya today, overlooking the expansive plains below, one senses the integration of natural majesty, human ingenuity, and symbolic vision. The terraces, frescoes, water gardens, and rock-cut chambers bear witness to technical skill, aesthetic sensibility, and ritual purpose. Yet they also pose questions that remain unanswered. What rituals unfolded within the chambers? How did the interplay of vertical space, light, and landscape enhance spiritual or political experience? And perhaps most intriguingly, what knowledge, intention, or insight has been lost, encoded in the rock, the gardens, or the movement through space, waiting silently to be understood by those willing to observe, reflect, and imagine. Like the stone circles of Senegambia, Dolmen de Anta Grande do Zambujeiro, Dolmen de Soto, Bargloy, Chambered Cairn, Stony Littleton, Long Barrow, Menga Dolmen, Blomsholm Stone Ship, Taverskoye Dolmen, Poulnabrone, Shaori Fortress, the Gallic Hillforts, the Cairn of Barnenez, Long Meg, Cuicuilco, Ha'amanga, Maui, Kokino, and the Mycenaean tombs. Sigiriya Rock Fortress reminds us that human beings have long sought to create enduring markers of knowledge, power, and belief. Each stone, each terrace, each garden is a deliberate act of imagination and intention, an enduring question posed across centuries. As we stand amid its ruins today, the final thought lingers in the tropical air of Sri Lanka. What secrets, wisdom, and vision remain hidden within Sigiriya, silently waiting for those who will look, wonder, and attempt to comprehend the extraordinary fusion of human ambition and natural grandeur? From the tropical heights of Sigiriya, where terraces, gardens, and frescoes intertwine with granite cliffs to create a fusion of human ingenuity and natural majesty, our exploration now takes us to the windswept plains and rugged cliffs of Azerbaijan, to the Gobustan region. Here, the landscape is both stark and haunting. Jagged rock outcrops, rolling semi-desert terrain, and distant Caspian Sea horizons form a dramatic stage for one of humanity's earliest enduring statements in stone. Gobustan is renowned for its extraordinary rock art, etched and carved into these surfaces over tens of millennia, a record of human presence, thought, and imagination stretching back as far as 40,000 years. At first glance, the carvings appear simple. Images of animals, humans, boats, and abstract symbols. Yet the sheer number, precision, and depth of these petroglyphs reveal a sophistication that continues to fascinate scholars, artists, and visitors alike. Gobustan's petroglyphs are more than mere decoration. They span epochs, from the Upper Paleolithic to the medieval period, providing a visual record of human life, ritual, and possibly belief systems across vast spans of time. Horses, deer, cattle, and mythical creatures appear alongside human figures engaged in hunting, dancing, or ceremonial activity. What drove these early artists to inscribe these images upon the stone? Were they simple depictions of daily life, coded symbols of ritual significance, or something more enigmatic, a means of communicating across generations, or even to forces beyond human understanding? And why did these communities choose the hard surfaces of the cliffs, challenging to carve, exposed to wind and weather, as their canvas? The landscape itself is inseparable from the art. Gobustan's cliffs, rising abruptly from the surrounding plains, are visible across long distances, suggesting that the placement of each panel may have been deliberate, intended to interact with sightlines, sunlight, or even natural acoustics. Could these sites have been chosen as landmarks, sacred spaces, or observatories, their location selected to imbue the carvings with spiritual, social, or astronomical significance? And if so, how much of the knowledge guiding these choices is now lost, leaving only tantalizing hints etched into stone? The artistry of Gobustan is notable for both its variety and its precision. Some figures are deeply carved, suggesting ceremonial emphasis or long-term intent, while others are lightly incised, almost fleeting in their presence. Among the most intriguing images are depictions of boats, some clearly seafaring, others fantastical, perhaps symbolic. What does this tell us about the movement, trade, or spiritual imagination of these early societies? Did the carvings serve practical functions, records of journeys, hunting grounds, or clan territories? Or were they primarily symbolic, meant to convey myth, cosmology, or ritual meaning? And if symbolism played a central role, what was the visual language employed, and how was it understood by those who viewed it, generation after generation? Archaeological investigations have revealed layers of human occupation in the vicinity of Gobustan, including tools, hearths, and dwellings, indicating that the creators of these petroglyphs were not merely transient visitors, but settled communities deeply attuned to their environment. Yet the scale and complexity of the carvings suggest that their creation involved considerable effort and communal engagement. How did these early societies organize the work, decide upon which images to inscribe, and preserve the knowledge of symbolic or ritual meaning across generations? And what role did the carvings play within social, spiritual, or political structures? Were they boundary markers, ceremonial sites, or mnemonic devices for oral traditions? The images themselves pose further mysteries. Certain panels depict abstract motifs, concentric circles, spirals, or enigmatic symbols that resist straightforward interpretation. Are these early attempts at recording astronomical phenomena, territorial claims, or spiritual cosmologies? Could they represent proto-writing, a visual language whose meaning has been lost to time? And if so, what insights might they offer into the cognitive, cultural, or spiritual sophistication of these early societies? Challenging our assumptions about prehistoric human thought, Gobustan's rock art is also remarkable for its depiction of human interaction with animals and the environment. Hunters wielding bows and spears appear alongside domesticated livestock, suggesting transitions in subsistence strategies, societal organization, and perhaps ritual practice. Some images appear to depict ritual dances or shamanistic figures, suggesting that these carvings were not mere snapshots of life, but deliberate acts of cultural or spiritual significance. How did the creators perceive their place in the cosmos, and how did they encode this perception into enduring imagery upon stone? And how much of this symbolic and ritual knowledge can we hope to decode today, millennia later, from the lines carved in rock? The continuity of the site adds further layers to its mystery. Gobustan was repeatedly revisited and inscribed over tens of thousands of years, a palimpsest of human imagination and experience. Each era contributed new figures, techniques, and symbolic innovations, yet often built upon or respected previous work. What cultural memory allowed such continuity across vast temporal distances? How did successive communities perceive and interact with the marks of their predecessors, and what meanings did they reinterpret, preserve, or forget? These questions underscore the remarkable longevity of human engagement with the site and the depth of its significance. Standing before the carved cliffs of Gobustan today, one is struck by the interplay of scale, environment, and imagination. The wind sweeps across the plains. The sun casts shadows that shift and lengthen across the carvings, and the petroglyphs themselves seem to hold an unspoken dialogue with those who approach. Each image, whether of a rearing horse, a dancing human figure, or an abstract spiral, is a deliberate act, a choice frozen in stone, a testament to the enduring desire of humans to leave traces of themselves, to communicate, and to explore meaning in their world. Yet for all that is visible, many questions remain. What was the full intent of these carvings? What knowledge and ritual meaning do they encode? And what stories are forever lost to the erosion of time? Like Shaori Rock Fortress, the stone circles of Senegambia, Dolmen de Anta Grande do Zambujeiro, Dolmen de Soto, Bargloy Chambered Cairn, Stony Littleton Long Barrow, Menga Dolmen, Blomsholm Stone Ship, Taverskoye Dolmen, Poulnabrone, Shaori Fortress, the Gallic Hillforts, the Cairn of Barnenez, Longmeg, Cuicuilco, Haamanga, Maui, Kokino and the Mycenaean tombs, Gobustan Rock. Art reminds us that humans across time and continents have sought to leave enduring traces of thought, ritual, and imagination. Each carving, each symbol, each deliberate line etched into stone is a question cast across millennia, a silent conversation with the present. And as we stand before these ancient cliffs, tracing fingers over figures that have endured tens of thousands of years, the final question lingers in the stillness of the Azerbaijani plains. What remains hidden in Gobustan, encoded in symbols and shapes, waiting for those who are willing to observe, reflect, and wonder at the depth and complexity of human imagination in the earliest expressions of art and ritual? From the rugged cliffs and ancient carvings of Gobustan, where human imagination and ritual have been etched into stone for tens of thousands of years, our journey returns westward to the fertile plains of Andalusia in southern Spain. Here, nestled among rolling hills, limestone outcrops, and the gentle undulations of the Guadalquivir Valley, lies the Dolmen de la Pastora, a passage tomb of understated elegance but profound mystery. Unlike the sprawling monumental complexes of Antequera, Dolmen de la Pastora is compact, yet every stone, every alignment, every architectural choice speaks to a culture deeply attuned to both the landscape and the cosmos. At first glance, it may appear modest, a simple stone chamber with a corridor leading inward, but closer inspection reveals layers of intention, symbolism, and unanswered questions. Dolmen de la Pastora is generally dated to the late Neolithic, around 3000 to 2500 BCE, contemporary with other Iberian megalithic constructions such as Dolmen de Soto and Dolmen de Anta Grande do Zambujeiro. Its corridor measures approximately 5 meters, leading into a circular chamber capped by a massive, delicately balanced capstone. The precision of construction is remarkable. Each orthostat was carefully placed, the roof slabs aligned with meticulous attention to stability and proportion. How did these early builders, working without metal tools of modern precision, manipulate such immense stones to create a structure that has endured for over 5 millennia? And more intriguingly, what vision guided them? The desire for permanence, the marking of sacred space, or perhaps a deeper connection between human ritual and cosmic cycles? The site's orientation is particularly compelling. The corridor appears to align with the rising sun during certain seasonal events, suggesting a sophisticated awareness of solar movement. This deliberate orientation transforms the dolmen from a simple burial chamber into a temporal instrument, a monument that measures, frames, and celebrates the passage of time. Was this alignment intended purely for ceremonial purposes, or did it also serve practical functions, guiding agricultural cycles or communal rituals? And how much of the underlying astronomical knowledge has been lost, leaving only the silent stones to hint at its former significance? Inside the chamber, the experience is both intimate and profound. The low enclosing walls create a space that is simultaneously protective and sacred. Archaeological excavations have uncovered human remains, pottery fragments, flint tools, and decorative items, suggesting that Dolmen de la Pastora was used repeatedly over generations. How were individuals selected for interment within the chamber? Did placement within the corridor or central chamber denote status, familial affiliation, or ritual role? And beyond the practical, what spiritual or symbolic significance did the journey through the narrow passage into the chamber convey? The act of moving from the outer world into this carefully constructed interior may itself have been ritualized, transforming a physical act into a symbolic passage from life to death, from the temporal to the eternal. The construction techniques of Dolmen de la Pastora are both simple and ingenious. The orthostats are embedded deeply into the earth, supporting the enormous capstone above, while smaller stones fill gaps, distributing weight and stabilizing the structure. Modern engineers marvel at the builder's understanding of balance, force, and durability, achieved with only rudimentary tools and collective labor. Was the act of building itself a form of ritual, a ceremonial exercise binding community, landscape, and spirituality? And how much of the symbolism was embedded not in decoration, but in the very act of constructing, lifting, and positioning each stone with care and intention? The dolmen's compact scale is deceptive. While smaller than monuments such as Anta Grande do Zambujeiro, its design demonstrates deliberate spatial choreography. The passageway guides movement, framing views of the interior, allowing shafts of light to penetrate at specific times and creating a tactile, embodied experience of ritual. Was this an early form of architectural storytelling, where the arrangement of space, light, and material conveyed meaning as clearly to the participants as spoken words or song? And if so, what layers of intention, now invisible to us, remain encoded in the stones themselves, waiting to be rediscovered by careful observation and reflection? Dolmen de la Pastora exists within a landscape rich with other megalithic sites, forming a network of human memory and ritual across the Guadalquivir Valley. Nearby dolmens share stylistic similarities, yet each demonstrates unique choices in orientation, chamber design, and construction technique. Were these sites coordinated across communities, linked by shared cosmology or social hierarchy? Did builders travel across distances, exchanging knowledge and ritual practice, or did each dolmen arise independently, shaped by local environment and resources? And what can these relationships between monuments tell us about Neolithic society, their networks, beliefs, and understanding of the world? The carvings and engravings inside Dolmen de la Pastora, though less elaborate than Gobustan's petroglyphs, offer further intrigue. Simple geometric motifs, concentric circles, and abstract patterns adorn some stones, hinting at symbolic or spiritual purpose. What did these symbols signify to those who made them? Were they protective marks, representations of the cosmos, or mnemonic devices for oral knowledge? And why were some stones left unadorned, their blank surfaces perhaps carrying their own silent significance, balancing the visual narrative of the dolmen? Water and the natural landscape seem inseparable from the dolmen's purpose. Positioned upon a gentle rise, Dolmen de la Pastora overlooks fertile plains, yet remains sheltered and secluded. Did its location signify access to life-sustaining resources, or was seclusion more important, a space set apart for the dead, the ritual, or the passage between worlds? And how did the builders perceive the surrounding environment, the rising sun, the changing seasons, the wind, and the soil, as active participants in the monument's meaning? Standing today at the entrance of Dolmen de la Pastora, one is struck by the interplay of scale, intimacy, and intent. The massive stones, precisely aligned, create a space that is both monumental and personal, capable of evoking awe while inviting reflection. Every step along the corridor, every touch upon the cool stone, connects the modern observer with generations of people who built, used, and revered this space. Yet for all that is visible, much remains uncertain. How were these sites originally perceived? What rituals, knowledge, or spiritual insight guided their construction? And how much of that understanding has been lost to time, leaving only the silent, enduring stones to speak across millennia? Like Gobustan Rock Art, Sigiriya Rock Fortress, the stone circles of Senegambia, Dolmen de Anta Grande do Zambujeiro, Dolmen de Soto, Bargloy Chambered Cairn, Stony Littleton, Long Barrow, Menga Dolmen, Blomsholm Stoneship, Taverskoye Dolmen, Poulnabrone, Shaori Fortress, the Gallic Hillforts, the Cairn of Barnenez, Long Meg, Cuicuilco, Maui, Kokino, and the Mycenaean tombs. Dolmen de la Pastora reminds us that humanity has long sought to transform stone and earth into enduring monuments of ritual, memory, and imagination. Each corridor, each capstone, each carved symbol is a question suspended across time, an invitation to wonder at the ingenuity, knowledge, and vision of our ancestors. As we stand within the quiet interior today, feeling the weight of the stones, sensing the play of light and shadow, and tracing the passage once traveled by the living and the dead, a single lingering thought persists. What remains hidden in Dolmen de la Pastora, waiting for those patient enough to observe, reflect, and confront the mysteries encoded in these enduring stones, silent witnesses to human curiosity, ritual, and ambition over 5,000 years ago? From the sun-washed hills and meticulously aligned stones of Dolmen de la Pastora, where human hands transformed raw rock into ritualized spaces of memory and passage, our journey carries us across the Mediterranean to the rugged landscapes of Sardinia. Rising from a gentle ridge in the Sinis region, Nuraghe Losa stands as a monumental testament to an enigmatic Bronze Age civilization, its truncated conical towers visible for kilometers across the rolling hills. At first glance, the structure appears a natural outcrop shaped by the earth itself. Yet closer observation reveals deliberate planning, immense labor, and a vision both practical and symbolic. How did a people, separated from the technological tools of later civilizations, conceive of such precision, and what knowledge, engineering, astronomical, or spiritual, guided their hands as they placed each stone? Nuraghe Losa is part of the broader Nuragic phenomenon, a unique Sardinian tradition of constructing stone towers, some solitary, others forming intricate networks across the island. This particular complex dates to roughly 1500 to 1200 BCE, a period marked by significant social and technological developments in the Western Mediterranean. Its central tower rises robustly, capped with massive stones carefully balanced atop corbelled chambers, surrounded by a series of smaller towers and enclosing walls. Together, these create a trilobate plan whose geometric complexity suggests both defensive and ceremonial intent. Yet despite extensive study, the full purpose of the Nuraghe remains a mystery. Were they fortresses, religious centers, communal gathering sites, or perhaps all of these simultaneously? And how did their builders reconcile technical necessity with symbolic or ritual significance? The sheer scale of construction is striking. Each stone, some weighing several tons, was quarried, transported, and positioned without the aid of metal tools or mortar. The central tower's corbelled roof, a feat of engineering that has withstood millennia, demonstrates an intuitive understanding of balance, compression, and structural dynamics. How were these techniques developed, and how was knowledge transmitted across generations? Was there a system of apprenticeship or oral instruction, a cultural method of preserving architectural wisdom long before writing became commonplace? And what drove these communities to dedicate such effort and resources to a structure whose monumental permanence exceeds the lifespan of its creators? Approaching the Nuraghe, one notices the interplay between the natural landscape and the architecture. The ridge upon which Losa stands affords extensive views of surrounding valleys, other Nuraghe, and distant hills, suggesting a strategic awareness. Yet the placement may not be solely defensive. Could the builders have intended symbolic visibility, ensuring that the Nuraghe dominated the landscape as a marker of communal identity, spiritual authority, or cosmological significance? And if so, how did they perceive the relationship between human construction and the broader natural and celestial environment? The interior spaces of Nuraghe Losa further complicate our understanding. The central tower contains a series of corbelled chambers, connected by narrow corridors, each carefully aligned and proportioned. Archaeological excavations reveal traces of domestic activity, pottery, and iron tools, alongside evidence of ritualized practices. How were these spaces used day to day? Were they homes, sanctuaries, or ceremonial centers? And what might the sequence of chambers and corridors suggest about the movement of people, the staging of ritual, or the interplay of light and shadow within the structure? Walking these ancient passageways today, one senses a choreography of human presence carefully orchestrated by builders whose intention remains largely elusive. The construction of Nuraghe Losa also invites reflection on social organization. Coordinating labor to quarry, transport, and assemble enormous stones requires a community with leadership, planning, and shared cultural motivation. What social structures supported such monumental construction? How did Bronze Age Sardinians mobilize collective effort while maintaining cohesion and transmitting architectural knowledge? Were the Nuraghe symbols of power, prestige, or communal identity, anchoring societies both physically and spiritually to the landscape? And how much of the meaning encoded in these massive structures has been lost, leaving only the stones themselves to speak across centuries? The relationship between Nuraghe Losa and the surrounding environment deepens its mystery. Water channels, terraced slopes, and proximity to fertile plains suggest awareness of resources, yet the site is also elevated, imposing, and visually dominant. Was this duality practical or symbolic? Did the builders intend to balance sustenance and security, or were these choices designed to convey status, ritual importance, or cosmological alignment? Furthermore, some researchers suggest that the trilobate form may carry symbolic or astronomical significance, though the evidence remains speculative. Could these geometric arrangements encode knowledge of celestial movements, seasonal cycles, or spiritual cosmology? And if so, how sophisticated was this understanding, and how was it transmitted across generations? Comparisons with other Nuraghe reveal both consistency and variation, suggesting a shared architectural language alongside local adaptation. Some Nuraghe are solitary towers. Others, like Losa, form complex compounds. How were these networks coordinated? Did communities communicate knowledge of construction, ritual, or social governance? Or did each site arise independently, guided by intuition and local need? And what might the variation in size, complexity, and orientation indicate about social hierarchy, cultural interaction, or differing ceremonial functions? The mystery of Nuraghe Losa extends beyond its physical structure to its enduring presence in human memory. Local tradition, folklore, and historical speculation attribute meanings that blend defense, habitation, and ritual. Yet modern analysis has yet to resolve fundamental questions. Why was the site ultimately abandoned? How did its role evolve over centuries of use? And what knowledge, once embedded in its construction and use, has vanished, leaving us with only the stones themselves as silent witnesses? Standing among the towers and terraces today, one cannot help but be struck by the juxtaposition of human intention and natural force. Wind sweeps across the hilltops, sunlight casts shifting shadows through the corridors, and the immense stones resonate with the presence of those who labored, planned, and envisioned a monument meant to endure. Each block, each corbelled chamber, each external wall carries the imprint of thought, effort, and cultural meaning, yet continues to guard its full secrets. What rituals unfolded within these chambers? How did the interplay of interior and exterior spaces shape social and spiritual life? And perhaps most compellingly, what insights about Bronze Age Sardinian society, its knowledge, belief systems, and cosmology, remain encoded, yet beyond our current understanding? Like Dolmen de la Pastora, Dolmen de Soto, Dolmen de Anta Grande do Zambujeiro, Sigiriya Rock Fortress, the stone circles of Senegambia, Gobustan Rock Art, Bargloy Chambered Cairn, Stony Littleton Long Barrow, Menga Dolmen, Blomsholm Stone Ship, Taverskoye Dolmen, Poulnabrone, Shaori Fortress, the Gallic Hillforts, the Cairn of Barnenez, Long Meg, Cuicuilco, Haamonga, Maui, Kokino, and the Mycenaean tombs. Nuraghe Losa reminds us that across continents and millennia, humans have sought to leave tangible expressions of knowledge, power, and belief. Each structure is a question, a silent challenge to later generations to interpret intention, skill, and cultural vision. As we walk among the stones, tracing walls that have endured thousands of years, the final thought lingers. What remains hidden within Nuraghe Losa? What wisdom and insight are encoded in these enduring towers, waiting for those willing to observe, reflect, and imagine the minds that shaped them so long ago? From the enduring towers of Nuraghe Losa, where Bronze Age Sardinians sculpted stone into monumental symbols of community, ritual, and observation, our journey now stretches across continents and millennia to the arid plains of northwestern Saudi Arabia. Here, beneath an open sky that seems to stretch endlessly toward the horizon, lie the enigmatic Mustatil Structures, sprawling geometric monuments etched into the desert landscape. Viewed from above, they reveal themselves as long rectangular platforms, some exceeding 600 meters in length, bordered by low walls of stone. To the naked eye, they are subtle, almost hidden by the sands and the scrub, yet their scale, repetition, and form convey an intention both deliberate and extraordinary. How did ancient builders, living in an unforgiving desert environment, conceive, organize, and execute these massive constructions? And for what purpose were these monumental rectangles built, whose function continues to elude modern understanding? The word Mustatil itself derives from Arabic, meaning rectangle, a fitting description for the geometric simplicity that belies their complexity. Recent archaeological investigations suggest that these structures date to the late Neolithic period, approximately 5,000 to 6,000 years ago, making them contemporaneous with early civilizations in Mesopotamia and the construction of monumental sites across North Africa. Each mustatil consists of long, parallel walls of stacked stones, connected at one or both ends by transverse walls, forming vast enclosures. The walls themselves are generally low, rising to no more than a meter or so in height, yet their length, orientation, and organization across the landscape suggest a monumental ambition far beyond mere practicality. Why did these ancient communities expend such effort to build structures whose scale dwarfs any conceivable domestic function? Unlike Nuraghe Losa, which integrates vertical towers and corbelled chambers, mustatils are fundamentally horizontal, sprawling across the flat desert. Their simplicity is deceptive. The repetition of form and alignment across multiple sites hints at an underlying system, perhaps tied to ritual, territoriality, or cosmology. Some researchers have suggested that the long enclosures may have been ceremonial pathways, spaces for ritual gatherings, or markers delineating sacred land. Yet there is no definitive evidence to confirm these hypotheses. Were these constructions centers of social cohesion, drawing communities together for seasonal or spiritual events? Or did they serve as visual markers across the desert, a network of monumental geometry linking human settlement to the vastness of the landscape? The orientation of mustatils adds another layer of intrigue. While many appear aligned along a roughly east-west axis, subtle variations suggest a consideration of celestial or seasonal cycles. Could the builders have tracked the sun, moon, or stars to determine the placement of walls, aligning their monuments with equinoxes, solstices, or other astronomical events? And if so, what knowledge of astronomy or cosmology might have guided these choices, encoded in the geometry of stone, yet intangible to us today? The possibility that these seemingly abstract rectangles encode observational or spiritual knowledge raises profound questions about the intellectual life of desert communities millennia ago. Construction itself would have demanded considerable coordination. Stones, often sourced locally, were carried, stacked, and positioned to create the linear walls that define each Mustatil. The effort required suggests a community organized not just for survival, but for collective enterprise, with a shared vision and social structure capable of mobilizing labor over weeks or months. Did the act of building carry ritual significance itself, a form of devotion, rehearsal, or ceremonial labor? Were these projects commissioned by emerging social leaders, or were they expressions of communal identity intended to unite multiple groups in shared purpose? And how did these builders perceive their work, as a bridge between the temporal world and the spiritual, or as a practical demarcation of territory within an expansive desert? The interior of Mustatils, though largely empty of permanent structures, sometimes contains stone platforms or cairns, suggesting ritual activity or symbolic depositions. Could these platforms have served as altars, ceremonial stages, or focal points for offerings? And if so, what beliefs and cosmologies underpinned these acts, leaving few traces beyond the stones themselves? Unlike many later monumental sites, Mustatils do not appear to contain burials, domestic structures, or defensive features, reinforcing the notion that their purpose may have been ritual, symbolic, or social rather than practical. Yet the absence of definitive evidence amplifies the mystery. How do we interpret monuments built to convey meaning without leaving behind the records of their intent? The distribution of Mustatils across northwestern Saudi Arabia further deepens the enigma. Hundreds have been identified, scattered across an arid landscape yet often located on elevated terrain or near ephemeral water sources. Some clusters suggest coordination, perhaps indicating ritual landscapes shared by multiple communities. How did these people communicate, coordinate construction, and transmit knowledge of design and ritual across distances? Were Mustatils part of a larger interconnected network of ceremonial sites, or were they independently conceived by local groups responding to their environment? And what does this reveal about the social organization, cultural priorities, and spiritual life of early Neolithic communities in the Arabian desert? The scale and repetition of these monuments evoke a consciousness of permanence. While the desert may erode and conceal, the walls of Mustatils persist, hinting at a deliberate engagement with time, memory, and place. Why invest so heavily in structures that offer no immediate material benefit? Was the act of creation a statement of human presence, an assertion of identity against the vast, indifferent landscape? And what messages, intentional or subliminal, were encoded in the rhythm, proportion, and orientation of these rectangles, intended to be read by future generations, or perhaps by unseen audiences beyond human comprehension? Some researchers have speculated that Mustatils may connect to ritual practices involving water, animal husbandry, or communal gatherings. Animal remains found near certain sites suggest feasting, sacrifice, or other ceremonial acts. Could these rectangular enclosures have served as arenas for social and ritual activity, spaces in which human and animal, community and landscape intersected in orchestrated performance? And if so, what symbolic or spiritual framework guided these acts, shaping both the construction of stone and the experience of those who participated? The enigmatic nature of Mustatils resonates with other monumental traditions we have explored. From Nuraghe Losa in Sardinia to Dolmen de la Pastora in Andalusia, and even Gobustan Rock Art in Azerbaijan. Across continents and epochs, humans have sought to leave enduring traces of thought, ritual, and collective imagination, using stone, earth, and space to communicate across generations. Yet in northwestern Saudi Arabia, the Mustatils present a particularly profound challenge. Stripped of domestic or funerary function, abstract in form, and dispersed across an unforgiving landscape, they confront us with questions that may remain fundamentally unanswerable. Standing amidst the low walls of a Mustatil today, one is struck by the subtle majesty of scale and repetition. The desert stretches endlessly in every direction. The wind moves silently through stone corridors. The sun shifts across walls that have endured millennia. Each rectangle, each carefully aligned corner, each faint platform hints at human intention, yet resists interpretation. Were these sacred spaces, social stages, astronomical instruments, or something beyond our comprehension? And as we gaze upon these silent rectangles, one cannot help but ask, what knowledge, belief, or ritual was encoded in these monuments? What messages did the builders hope to transmit across time, and what secrets remain hidden beneath layers of sand, silence, and history, waiting for the observant and the patient to wonder, interpret, and imagine the intentions of civilizations that flourished in this desert long before the written word? The Mustatil structures, in their stark simplicity and monumental scale, remind us of the enduring human impulse to shape the landscape in ways that outlast individual lifetimes. Like the Nuraghe of Sardinia, the dolmens of Iberia, or the rock art of Gobustan, they confront modern observers with a profound tension, the tangible evidence of human ingenuity and intention, and the enduring mystery of purpose and meaning. Each wall, each alignment, each repetition across the desert expanse is both a question and an answer, a deliberate act of creation whose full significance may forever elude us. And yet, it is precisely this unresolved mystery that invites us to linger, to observe, and to wonder at the depth, creativity, and spiritual consciousness of the people who shaped these enduring monuments thousands of years ago.